I got to be honest, the historically low temperatures didn't feel all that historically low to me. Maybe that's just because our souls are frozen over already. Hi!
At least we're getting used to it.
Glenn Clark Radio. We're doing it. We'll keep doing it. I mean, for now, anyway. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll just wake up and be like, I'm good. But we'll keep doing it for now. Thanks to everybody who joined us for the final Project Game Day of the season last night. I would say it was fun, but I'd be lying.
That was the last one?
Yeah, that was it.
Why?
What did it do? Project Game Day after the Commanders game?
Yeah.
You can go find that later. Or now. I don't care. Whatever. Or
as long as you come back.
Right? Probably for some of you, you're going to be like, I would rather never find it. I don't really want to. And I get it. I don't want to put my big girl panties on today either. But we're here, and we'll talk about it because that's, I don't know, that was what was on the schedule for me to do today. That's the reason why we're doing it. Coming up, Dan Wilcox will join us. We'll get his thoughts. Jeremy Conn will check in. Boy, was he bullish. Eric Edholm, NFL.com. Yeah. Look, man, what do you want to do? You want me to sit here and pretend like I know how you're feeling? I do, because we're all feeling it. And as I'll say in a column today at PressBoxOnline.com, I can't make it better. I can't do that. I can't offer perspective that'll make you feel good about it. Nope. I can't give you any of the immediate gratification that you want. I can't tell you to fire the coach. I can't tell you anything. It just sucks. They lost a football game. They lost a football game they had no business losing. It requires next to no analysis, which also makes it difficult for what we do. It's really hard to find 80 different ways to say you can't turn the ball over. You can't lose the turnover battle 3-0. If you turn the ball over 3 times but you force 3 turnovers, different conversation. You can't lose the turnover battle 3-0 and win playoff games. Even though they still tried. It's a testament about how good they are. They're so good that even when they get their ass kicked in the turnover battle, they're still right there. But there's only so many ways that you can say it. And to try to have some bigger picture thing. We're looking for like this connective tissue. The Ravens always come up small in the playoffs. Well, yes, in that they haven't reached the Super Bowl. That part is correct. But like they haven't lost all of their playoff games. And they haven't lost them all in the same way. And they haven't lost them all in the same round. And they haven't lost them all in the same location. And the list goes on. Now, they haven't beaten Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game. They got that. That part is true. That's sort of next on the list. And they'll have to deal with it.
The next 365 days.
It's the suckiest suck that ever does suck. Because there's no... It feels purgatorial. It's not really, as Femi pointed out. What's really purgatory is what the Steelers are going through. That's purgatory. There's no path where you think you have a chance next year. You're going to go through the same thing. You're going to be good enough to be interested, not good enough to actually feel like you have a chance. The Ravens actually have a chance every year. And why do they fall short in the playoffs? I don't have that answer. Some of you have just clung to the idea that if there was just any other coach, the results in the playoffs would be different. Okay.
Time to get Ron Rivera in here.
Yeah, obviously that would change everything. Like, okay, if that's what you believe, that's what you believe. I don't know what to tell you. The idea that you just hand it over and see if it might be, it's just nonsense. Like, I understand that's kind of what we've decided to do with our country, but, most businesses don't run like that. Most businesses anyway. I wish there was somewhere to put my anger, because I get it. I know that that's what a lot of you are feeling. You're just angry. You get so invested. You get so emotionally tied up in it that you just want to be angry at somebody. But, like, arguably the two biggest culprits, although I'm not sure they're going to be 1 and 2 on my list, arguably the two biggest culprits are, two of the 5 most important football players on the team. Like, the biggest culprit is a guy the Ravens aren't there without. Yes, it sucks that Mark Andrews let them down. It sucks badly. It's particularly alarming that it wasn't just like one thing, that it was an entire night's worth of troubles. That sucks. But Mark Andrews is a Ring of Honor Raven who's etched his name as one of the greatest players in franchise history. This isn't Lee Evans or Billy Cundiff. This is a Raven. This isn't a mercenary. This is a dyed-in-the-wool, beloved player. You own their jersey, and for the most part, wear it with pride. Sucks, man. It sucks. If emotionally you're like, well, maybe they just need to move it. Stop. The Ravens are a worse team without Mark Andrews. They are. To a lesser extent, it's Lamar. Look, Lamar played far well enough to win last night. Like the only saving grace is you can't really rehash the Lamar MVP. Like, Lamar played far well enough to win. But to say he didn't make mistakes? Of course not. Of course not. The interception is mind-boggling. I mean, the fumble was the more devastating play ultimately. But at the same time, like, you know what he's doing there. Boy, Tyler Linderbaum is really thanking, like, everybody he can find that nobody's talking about him today. Well, I'm going to.
Yeah, I think I will as well.
Like, he's going to be higher on the list than one of the guys I just named. Because the good outweighed the bad. I'm not sure that it did with Tyler Linderbaum. And again, it's not me saying that it's all on Tyler Linderbaum either. And again, he's one of the good players. One of the better players on the football team. So even on a terrible night, where he's getting pushed back and tripping up his quarterback and even on a terrible night, I don't know what to say. There's no answer. As bad as we want there to be, there's no, well, here's how it all gets fixed. It sucks, man. It sucks. Because it's another 12 months. It's another season where the regular season only feels so important. It's another year of just playing this waiting game. But it's also another year we have to remind ourselves that it's fortunate that that's the way that we feel. Like, that is, we're jaded, we're spoiled.
Whenever Lamar Jackson's been healthy, they have been one of the final 8 teams outside his rookie year. Like, that's...
Yeah, in a full season of Lamar Jackson, yes, correct. And there almost certainly will be again. But they've got to figure out how to play cleaner football. And again, I get that you're going to want to say, well, that's why I think it's time for John Harbaugh to go. Okay, if you think that John Harbaugh is encouraging Mark Andrews to recklessly hold the ball out downfield while trying to get to the other side of the field, I got nothing for you. And I get that there can be more nuance to the conversation. You could say, well, these guys don't fear what's going to happen if they make these mistakes. Okay, so what's another coach going to do to Mark Andrews if he does that?
Make him run.
Like take him off the field? Is another coach going to say, tell you what we're going to do is we're not going to play Mark Andrews. That's how we're going to solve this problem. We're going to tell him he's done for the night. That'll make the statement that we're looking to make, right? That'll. What do you want me to say? Is there a curse hanging over this organization? Is there? I don't know. They're there all the time. I would think the cursed organization would be the Raiders. That's what I think the cursed organization would be. I worry that the pain, like for me, the pain is today, and then like I don't know. I'll watch the Maryland women later tonight, and I'll watch the national championship game. By last night, I was already watching tennis. Damn it, Lerner Tien won the third set. I was like, oh maybe.
He ended up losing. Who was he?
Sonigo.
Oh, okay. Of course, Sonigo.
I really hate the fact that the Djokovic-Alcaraz match is like 4 a.m. tomorrow. It's just really annoying for.
How come they don't line it up so that that's at least a semi or something?
Because Djokovic, that's just the reality of where Djokovic is because he doesn't play that many tournaments anymore. He can't get that many points, and so his ranking is going to be.
What's he, like 10 or something?
Not 10, but I don't know. Whatever it is, he's dropped because he doesn't play as many tournaments.
So that'll be 4 a.m. tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
All right.
Like, I'd love to,
You'll
but
let me know what happens.
Yeah, it ain't happening. It's just not happening. Like, it sucks. I really want to, but it ain't happening. If the championship game wasn't tonight, like maybe if there was nothing to do tonight, if there was just like no games on, and
well, you'd have to watch Raw though. So
no, I don't. Have you met me? I never watched that. I put it on in the background while I'm doing other things, and I look up every now and then. Then somebody mentions to me on the podcast what happened, and I'm like, that happened? I was blissfully unaware. Huh? How about it? Man, it just is what it is. I think the dread, the existential dread that a lot of us are feeling is like, well, now we got to hear about it. I don't care. You can't get me to care. I don't care what they're going to say about it on ESPN or on Fox. I don't care.
About Lerner Tien on ESPN?
Yeah, I don't care. I'll never care. I won't. That will not affect my life in any way. What some doofus says to get attention on the internet will never affect my life. You can't get me to care about this stuff. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. If I lived in Buffalo, I wouldn't care what Jerry Coleman thought about Buffalo. If I live in Baltimore, I don't care what any of these doofuses think. By the way, I'm also a doofus.
I'm not, for what it's worth.
No, you are.
No.
I don't care. I care that the Ravens didn't win the Super Bowl because I want the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. And that's it. I don't care about anybody's narratives. I don't care about... And we all live with it, and they all exist. But Lamar Jackson doesn't need to win a Super Bowl for that. He needs to win a Super Bowl because he wants to win a Super Bowl. Like, that's it. The Ravens have got to continue to try to figure out what the best way is to get there. This year, it's not one particular area of the field that let them down in the end. In the end, it's not, well, gosh, they just didn't have good enough edge rushers. They did. They did. Could they be better? Of course. Everybody could be better. You're always looking to be better. You could say they didn't have a good enough second outside cornerback, but that's really specific. It's a very specific one place on the field. They got to figure out how to play cleaner football. If you're looking for any connective tissue this season, they lost in highly penalized games and bad turnover games. Turnovers really only being this one and like the Steelers game. Yeah. They lost those games. They've got to play cleaner football, and they got to figure out what that looks like, and that's what they'll have to dive in on. And they'll have lots of decisions to make, and we'll spend the offseason going over that. Ronnie Stanley's a free agent. I can't imagine them allowing him to reach free agency. I would assume that at this point they have no choice but to tag him. I would assume. I think Roger Rosengarten played well, but not well enough that you're willing to just say, oh, hell, move on from Ronnie. Like, I think you have no choice there. They got to figure out what the cap numbers are going to look like for Mark Andrews and Marlon Humphrey, and if they can get some flexibility from those guys. But those guys played too well for them to be considering a world in which, like, just upending it. And to be fair, that's what they did with the offensive line a year ago, is they chose to upend it. And in the end, it's not what doomed them. Again, the only real offensive line issue from last night was the guy who's probably considered your best offensive lineman. So there is, somebody would bring up there's a world in which they say, well, they're not going to get rid of Mark Andrews because of last night, but maybe they always assume that Isaiah Likely had to be the star because he's got the better number. This doesn't make sense. They're going to get some flexibility moving on from Marcus Williams. That'll gain them some cap space. They've got to find some other cap space and redoing deals to make the numbers make sense for the guys like Humphrey and Mark Andrews. Presumably, they start working on that today. Tomorrow, whatever. Those guys almost certainly got to keep around. Ardarius Washington's a restricted free agent, so you don't really have to worry about that. You got to make a decision about Pat Ricard. Is there some world where you just say we got to find our next Pat Ricard? I don't think any of us would like that, but if that's what they decide, that's what they decide. The easy one is Marcus Williams. The rest of them aren't easy. Do they move on from Pat McCary? I mean, he's just been so valuable to them that it's hard to think that that's an answer. But maybe that's the problem, is he's going to be so valuable on the open market that he just prices himself out of Baltimore, and they say we have faith in our ability to find interior offensive linemen. It's sort of all we've ever done here. Then, that could be a place where that could just be a player that prices his way out. Maybe Malik Harrison is someone who prices his way out of Baltimore. That'd be a bummer, but again, it's another position where they'd say, hey, it was supposed to be Trenton Simpson anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, we haven't lost faith in him. We just, I don't know.
And Josh Bynes is coming back to it.
Right. I think Chris Board is also a free agent, but I don't know how much demand there will be for Chris Board. We'll find out. They got decisions to make. They got to figure out if Todd Monken's going to be around, if any other assistants are going to have other opportunities to move up. I mean, there's still other stuff that has to be sorted out. And they'll deal with all of it. But they've got another offseason ahead of them of trying to figure out what presents them the best opportunity to go win a Super Bowl. And then they'll need more injury luck. That's maybe one of the bummers about this year, is they actually had some of the best injury luck that they've had in franchise history. I know that, we'll obviously talk about Zay Flowers not being out there for the playoffs, but ultimately he missed 2 games. Like, on the whole,
the O-line was very healthy.
Yeah, I mean, the Arthur Millette stuff was a bummer. I don't know how much of a difference it makes in the end, but it was a bummer. But this was about as lucky as they've been on the injury front in modern Ravens history. Probably the luckiest they've been. They'll need more luck. It's the nature of the beast. It sucks, man. It sucks. I wish I could say anything. I wish I could be angry the way that you guys are angry, just to make. I don't know. I don't want that. Why would I say that? I don't wish I could be angry. I'm sorry for those of you that want me to be angry that I'm not more angry. I don't know what I would be angry about. Or I don't know where I would direct that anger.
Carl Jeffers, maybe.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, if you want to talk about the call at the end of the first half, it was awful. I mean, it was an ungodly, atrocious call. But there are going to be ungodly, atrocious calls in football games. That's going to happen. There were others that were, like the thing on the sideline. The intentional grounding is the one that nobody's talking about, that, like, is just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And you can say they just called out the wrong number when they said the number one was receiver number one was in the area. Like they just screwed up and they meant to say Ty Johnson. I don't know. But Ty Johnson wasn't in the area either. He was on that side of the field. It was more in the area than Keon Coleman or whoever. Who did they say? They said number one.
Yeah,
right?
so it's like Samuel, I guess.
I guess.
I think it was Shakir was the closest. Was it?
No, I thought
don't
Ty Johnson was the
know.
closest.
Ty Johnson was the
But
closest.
none of them were.
No, no one was.
That was the definition. Like this is even in the Rams thing where we're like we don't like the way the word is written because this isn't even that. No one was in the area of that football. But can I?
There we go. We got you angry.
Yeah. Thank you. The Bills would point out there was an obviously terrible holding call on Deion Dawkins earlier in the game that, might have been the difference in them. They were moving the ball well on that drive, and they would be right. It was a dreadful call. Dreadful calls happen. I do think that was like the one for them, and there were a few more the other way, but that's part of the game. You got to be able to overcome it. The Ravens didn't overcome it last night because they turned the ball over 3 times. That's it. That's it. Turned the ball over 3 times. Griffin, tell everybody about the CIAA tournament.
Sure thing. Baltimore is welcoming the excitement of the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament back to the CFG Bank Arena this spring, February 25th through March 1st. Get your tickets now. They are available at Ticketmaster.com. Again, the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament at CFG Bank Arena, February 25th through March 1st. Ticketmaster.com for your tickets.
All right. Let's see if this guy can help us make some sense of all of it. Of course, former Ravens tight end, host of the Believe in Ravens podcast. He's our friend Dan Wilcox, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Dan, I'd say good morning, but we all know it isn't. I appreciate you doing this anyway. Thank you, buddy. It's good to talk to you.
Hey, Glenn, when I said I would come on the show, I was expecting to be excited about a win, man, but I'm freaking disappointed about a loss, my man.
Hey, man, we're all in the same boat. Dan, I just want to start with this is the really difficult part is I'm wrecked for Mark Andrews, wrecked for him because Mark Andrews is an eternal Raven. He is a Ring of Honor player, a guy that's done everything that you could possibly have asked for out of a franchise caliber player. I'm wrecked for him because we can't hide from it and pretend like he didn't have an awful night. But at the same time, there's nothing bigger to say there other than great player, had terrible night, and I'm just sick for him.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much been the story the last couple of years, man. I know last year it was Zay Flowers with the fumble diving in the end zone. Had a pretty decent night, just dove in the end zone, made one bad play, and it cost us the game. And this year it was Mark's fumble and Mark's drop, So, I mean, it sucks, man. Ain't no way around it, man. Like, at the end of the day, the Bills didn't beat the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens beat themselves, and we allowed this to happen, one too many times this season. And I had Brendan Argument-Deji on the show the other day, and he was saying the 5 losses were good because of the fact that, it was a lot of learning moments that came from those moments. And that's how I look at losses too. I say I never lose, I only learn. So this is something that they got to learn from again, man. Unfortunately, it cost all of us. Glenn, I don't think I've ever been a fan before, man, until this season. This season, for some reason, I think I transitioned over to being a fan, officially being a fan. And all this time, I just been a player. And I didn't really understand, how much it hurts, if I'm not playing, because I've always been a player. But this year, for some reason, it felt different. Like, my stomach was in knots watching the entire game last night, trying to figure out why we doing this or why we doing that or why we ain't do this or why we ain't do that. And the 2 turnovers early by Lamar, it was frustrating to watch, man. I'm like, man, we can't do this again. When Mark dropped that ball, I jumped up, I slammed my hand on the desk, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, like, come on, Mark! And I'm like, bro, I felt like I was at the game, like in the game on the sideline, like, bro, come on, bro, we got to have it, you know what I'm saying? And then I had to calm myself down and realize I'm not playing anymore. And I think that's how every fan feels, man. And I feel bad for the city of Baltimore because it's 2 years in a row that we've wasted so much freaking talent that we've had on this team. Eric DeCosta has done a phenomenal job, him and his crew, as far as loading this roster up and putting us in a position to be great. And we just, 2 years in a row, man, we crap down our legs.
Dan, what do you make of that? I feel like that's the question that everybody's answering. How do you fix that? How do you solve when the connective tissue is just letdowns in the playoffs? Like, how do you fix that as an organization? This thing that just sort of continues to hang over you.
I don't know what we got to do to fix it. Because you can look at it last night and you can point the fingers at everybody on the field, right? The defense had a phenomenal game. They did a great job stopping guys all night long. We kept putting them in bad situations. They kept coming out on top. But the only thing the defense didn't do was get turnovers. They got no turnovers at all. And then when you recap the game in your mind and your head, we didn't even have one opportunity to get an interception. So we would have had to strip the ball. And then if we stripped the ball and caused the fumble, then we would have had to be, ripping the ball out of every opportunity. And we did that. Every time you turned around, they was getting extra yards because we was trying to pull the ball out. So we was doing things to try to get turnovers, but they didn't give us any opportunities at all. And then, when I started thinking about how our turnovers came about, I think it was a miscommunication on the corner route from Lamar to Bateman. Bateman broke low, Lamar threw high. Cardinal rules, you always keep corners high. You set them high. Bateman set his low. He set it low for a reason because he felt like it was an easier throw for Lamar. Lamar threw the ball earlier. He premeditated the throw, so he threw it before Bateman even came out the break. Bateman went low, never saw the ball until it was too late. And then the fumble by Lamar, I just felt like Lamar was trying to do too much. Like using, he had already had a bad snap, take the loss right there and then live to play the next play. But he tried to be Lamar Jackson, the guy that we love the most, that does these spectacular plays, and the ball slipped out of his hand and they was able to get a fumble for us. And then, the Mark Andrews play, Mark tried to do a little bit more than what he would normally do. Normally he would take that, put his foot in the ground and get vertical and try to stiff arm that guy while he's running away from him. And he tried to jump back and, the guy punched the ball out. That was a heck of a play by the defender. What can you say in that situation, man? So, we have to do a better job. I look at the coaching staff, and I can't blame anything on coaching. I can say why we didn't give Derek the ball more, why we didn't give Justice the ball more. But the way the kind of flow of the game went and the way we started the game off throwing the ball and Lamar ate him up on that first drive, it kind of sets you up as an OC to want to, to do a little bit more of that. So, you can look at it 100 different ways this Sunday. It ain't nobody's fault but ours. We put the ball on the ground 3 times. We gave them opportunities to score when we shouldn't have gave it to them, and we still had a chance to win the game all the way down to the last play. And, it was a heck of a game. We fell short. It's on us. Ain't on nobody else. I don't know what the front office could do to put you in a better situation. Harbaugh could have done a couple of things differently, but if he, I could have said in the third quarter when we went for the 2, we should have took the 1. Then we should have took the 1 again at the end instead of going for 2. And that would have tied us up and would have put us in overtime. But you don't know how the game is going to go. He tried to tie it up then instead of just taking the easy points. I couldn't say that. You could say that too. But if he'd have got the 2 points, then he would have tied it up. We was like, great call, Harbaugh, great call. And then he did it again. They would have won the game at the end by 2. So if Mark Andrews catches the ball and all we needed was 2 points to win the game, you shake your head and you go with frustration. If we'd actually got the 2 earlier, then at the end of the game, all we would have needed was a field goal to win the game, an extra point. That's it.
Dan Wilcox is with us here on GCR. Dan, I want to touch on something you said in there because you mentioned on the fumble Lamar was just trying to make a play. He was trying to be Lamar. I wonder if the lesson that we learned from these Bills and, frankly, from the Chiefs the last couple of seasons, Patrick Mahomes was the single most exciting player in football history, and then the Chiefs kind of said, yeah, but it would be better if he was more boring. And the Bills last night were wildly content to be boring. And I wonder if that's the bigger lesson to learn about winning in the playoffs, is that Lamar Jackson, again, like Patrick Mahomes, may be the most exciting player in the history of the game of football. But the reality is this team's got to get better at being boring, at just going out and doing the things and not trying to do too much and not trying to make just going out and functionally getting through games, because that's what the difference is once you get into the playoffs.
I can agree with that a little bit, Glenn, because I felt like, honestly, we could have just gotten our U package, our heavy package, Pat Ricard, the 3 tight ends, and Derrick Henry, and just ran the ball down their throats. And Justice Hill had such an explosive game last night. I mean, we could have just kept handing the ball off to our running backs, and we would have probably been fine. We didn't have to throw the ball at all. You think about all 3 turnovers we had, they came from throwing the ball. Lamar deep ball to Bateman was a throw. Him scrambling in the backfield and fumble the ball was a throwing play. Actually, he said it was an RPO. He said it was a run play, the run pass option. But when he had the bad snap, when you get a bad snap like that, you probably should shut it down. So he didn't shut that down. And then the throw to Mark Andrews when he fumbled the ball, that was another one. Then we had 4 drops on top of that, 2 by Andrews, 2 by Henry. So I mean, we did everything we could to lose the game, and we still had a chance to win it. I feel like if you make your explosive players be boring, then you kind of handicap your explosive players. And I feel like that's been the story of Lamar's career. Like, ever since he walked through the doors, even before he got through the doors, everybody was trying to stop him from being the most dynamic player in the world. And he tapered off his game and didn't play his full game for the last 6-7 years and didn't give you the best version of himself because all he did was get criticized. And then you go watch a kid like Jaden Daniels doing all the exact same stuff Lamar did when he came in, and everybody is praising the hell out of this kid about how amazing he is, how great he is. But when Lamar was doing that, everybody was hating on Lamar. So it's like you pick your poison. You got a dynamic player, let the player be dynamic. Like, ain't nobody telling Jaden Daniels not to run the ball, not to throw the ball, not to make magical plays, not to, do all the things that he do that make him Jaden Daniels. But every opportunity we get, or every opportunity people get, they try to knock Lamar down with every opportunity they get, and I hate it.
No, that's a far more complicated conversation, Dan. And I agree broadly with what you're saying. I think to me it's more like just in these like maybe road playoff games, and I think the 2 plays, the fumble from Mark Andrews,
run the damn ball.
And the fumble, like that, you just got to say, guys, we don't need the biggest play. We need the functional play that keeps this thing working. Like you hate this. It was funny you brought up BA because I do the show with Femi after the games, and Femi and I were talking about last night. And Femi's like, I'm not going to criticize Mark Andrews. He's trying to make a play, but I just wondered if there has to be a different style of football in the playoffs. Like you want to win on the road against good teams. You've got to learn to be able to say in this moment, that's not what we need. We don't need the biggest play. We need the play that puts us in a better position. That's what I was feeling in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking. I mean, I guess the only word I could say was flabbergasted. I was freaking irate when he fumbled the ball, man, in the open field like that. And, it was a great throw. Lamar made some freaking phenomenal throws all game long and put us in great situations, man. But I agree, from the coaching standpoint, what we don't get sometimes from our coaches is that, they reiterate the little things to us sometimes. And, paying attention to detail is always a part of this game. It's a huge part of this game, So I guess at those critical moments, you got to have your coaches remind you of what happened last year and what you got to do in order to get back into this game. And not just say, man, we're going to come back and it's going to be a great comeback, but reiterate all the little things. Bro, we got to protect the ball, got to protect the ball, got to protect the ball. 2 hands on the ball at all costs, and you just got to keep reiterating those things throughout the game. I mean, the 2 early turnovers should have been enough to make them hound the players about protecting the ball. So I don't know, man. I don't know what to say. And then we had the drops. The drops have been consistent pretty much all year long. And every time you get one of those drops, it seems like it's at such a crucial time of the game, man. I hate it.
All right, so give me one priority for you. We're going to have a long off season, and there'll be lots of times to talk about individual decisions. But what's one priority for you for this team? How does it get? How do they improve their chances, personnel-wise, of not having the same result in the postseason next year?
They got to stick together, man. That's the only priority, is try to figure out a way you can keep the nucleus of this team together. What happens is you go on a run like this, and then the whole team get dismantled, and now you lose on the chemistry and everything else that you've built throughout the entire season, and then you got to figure out what things you did wrong this year. Like to me, bringing Deontay Johnson in, that was a wrong move. That kind of backfired on us big time, and I'm sure that kind of disrupted the locker room a little bit. I think you got to work on some things with some of your DBs and Just make sure they're on the right page and on the same page and understanding, where we're headed. But overall, man, we got a phenomenal team, and we did a great job of putting together a great staff. The coaching staff is great. The players are great. We just got to capitalize and just overlook this season and try to figure out where we went wrong early, and how we can better ourselves so the chances are greater for us the next time around.
I imagine you guys are going to be still doing the podcast throughout the course of the offseason?
Yeah. We'll jump on and off throughout the offseason as we make transitions and moves and stuff. I'm sure some stuff is going to come out pretty soon. We may lose some coaches, which I hate. Mm-hmm. And I was explaining to my co-host, Matt Trigger. I was telling Matt, I was like, bro, I played 9 seasons in this league. Every year I had a different OC. Yeah. If we lose Todd Monken this year, it's going to be a tough loss for us. So Zach, the defense have been struggling every year. Every 2 years they got a new DC for like the last 6 years. So I mean that's kind of hard on the defense too. You see the struggles we had early in the season, and we started to figure it out towards the end of the year. But we lost a bunch of games this year that we shouldn't have lost. And every time you lose a game, you lose a little bit of confidence in yourself. So we need all the confidence we can get. So we can continue to build and grow this franchise and this organization. I was determined last year for Lamar to get a Super Bowl. I was determined this year for Lamar to get a Super Bowl. And I don't know how we fall short 2 years in a row with a dynamic team the way we have.
It is infuriating, man. It is. It is what it is. Yeah. But there's nothing we can do.
Make you feel like a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Oh, man. In comparison, this is the context that we do have to keep in mind. There's a reason why we're hurting today. It's because you genuinely believe they should have won the Super Bowl, whereas in a lot of other cities, there was no shot. No shot.
At all. 100%.
Hey, bro, I love you. We're going to be in touch as the offseason goes on, and I always appreciate you make yourself so readily available for us, and you've done that for decades at this point, man, and it means the world. Yeah. Always appreciate you, brother. Let's talk real soon, all right?
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks for having me on, man. Love you guys, too. Y'all take care.
All right, buddy. That's Dan Wilcox. Man, it's not a whole lot else to say. Sucks. This is the only, if you wanted me to come away with something. It's funny because when we brought it up last night during Project Game Day, Femi pointed out, well, like, hey, the Bills, as we said, the Bills had one goal. Don't screw it up. And in their attempt to not screw it up, they almost screwed it up, right? Like by being as conservative as they were with an 11-point lead in the second half, it was not really who they were, and it damn near allowed the Ravens to come back and tie the game. By the way, I've wrestled with this. It's something that nobody wants to say. Even if Mark Andrews catches the ball, there was way too much time left. I don't think the Ravens were winning the game.
You have to hope that they score really quick.
And that you get another possession out of – like, I hate saying that out loud.
Or I guess they get a stop.
It's the same thing I would say the opposite way about the Bengals game. Like, everybody was making a big deal about the penalty for the Bengals and the two-point conversion. I'm like, I kind of don't care. I think the Ravens are winning the game anyway. If that was the only error from Mark Andrews last night, it would be easier for me to give him a pass because I'd be like, yeah, it sucks, but I don't think it was going to make the difference in the end, as I genuinely don't. I think the Ravens were going to lose because there was too much time. Now, I also don't think they had a choice. It's funny, I was having this conversation, I think, with our buddy Randy Morgan as it was all playing out. When they got the ball back with 3.5 minutes left, I thought there was a world where they needed to try to go quick if they could in order to buy a plan B for the two-point conversion. If you can go quick, if you can score in a minute and keep the 2-minute warning in play, then you've bought yourself a plan B. The trade-off being, as Randy pointed out, well, yeah, but now you're giving if you do get the two-point conversion, you're giving the Bills more time to go score. And I'm like, you've lost that luxury. You've put yourself in this position. Whenever it comes down to a two-point conversion, you're playing with fire. And so it's good to have a potential plan B. They lost that, after the first couple of plays, didn't get chunk yards. There was going to be no world. And then it's, okay, well, you don't need to score too quickly here. They did. We'll never know. Maybe they go get another stop, right? Maybe the Bills are so conservative that they don't really want to risk anything, and They don't get chunk yards. They keep everything underneath, and they don't get there. I don't know. I have no idea how it would have played out. But my gut tells me it wouldn't have made a difference. The Bills would have scored, and they would have won the game at the end of regulation. And this is what happens when you turn the ball over 3 times. It's the reality of the circumstances. But I do wonder if you're looking for a lesson, I don't think Patrick Mahomes is any less great today than he was when he took the football world by storm 6-7 years ago. I think what's changed is the Chiefs have recognized that's not what's necessary for them to win.
The formula,
Yes. Early on, that was necessary for them to win. They didn't have a formula. They had Patrick Mahomes be a wizard. And he was. Then they came up with a formula. Hey, we can win this way. And you don't get these magical, you're not going to believe what this guy did, and he's not going to be the MVP of the league. He wasn't even in the conversation. But it's not because any of us, when we power rank quarterbacks going into the offseason, Patrick Mahomes was still number 1 on the list. Why? Because we know what he's capable of. They've just changed what they're asking him to do. That might be the next phase in this. Can the Ravens learn to be boring? No, you don't fall. The interception, there's kind of no, there's just no reason for that. But again, it kind of worked out to be an arm punt. The Bills didn't score on the next drive. The Ravens got the ball back. It's hard to obsess over that one. The other two, they're crimes of aggression. And inherently, as a football fan, you want to give a pass to someone for committing a crime of aggression, for trying to make a bigger play. But if there is a lesson to be learned, if there is something that you take from it, it's the question of, is the next lesson for the Ravens as a franchise to learn to stop being that aggressive? You're better. You're at least good enough, if not better, than almost any team that you're going to play. Stop being so aggressive. Put yourself in better situations. Who's this? Is this Ron? Hey, Ron's buzzing in. All right. Do me a favor. I got to get a commercial break. Then I'll let Ron say his piece. And then we'll get into slaps. We'll deal with that. And I'll tell you, this was a tough one for me. Slaps, 4 of them to me were obvious. The 5th one was very difficult. And where to put everybody after number 1 was also very difficult. This is a tough list. That's the only saving grace I have for you today, is you can still win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. As bad as today is, you could still have $50 to spend at the Costas Inn. All you got to do is go to Twitter or Blue Sky. Griffin, that's got to be the next step. Okay. Too many people are leaving Twitter. We got to recognize that. And we got to be monitoring Blue Sky, and you got to get on there, and we got to send tweet. We got to make that a priority now that the season's over. That's got to be the next step, is integrating Blue Sky in what we do with the show. Of course, why not? Why not more work? We got to do it. So get in those ways. Somebody's going to win a $50 gift card to Costas Inn. Just get me your slaps to the helmet. 5 Ravens most deserving of scoring. We'll do that next. Glenn Clark Radio.
COVID-19 and flu viruses are circulating in Maryland. But don't worry. Protection is within arm's reach. Protect your health with this year's COVID-19 and flu shots. It's safe and convenient to get them both at the same time. Flex your protection. For more information, visit health.maryland.gov/vaccines.
This message paid for by the Maryland Department of Health. Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along. Don is checking in the YouTube comments. I just wish I could live in a world that was as simplistic as if step 1, fire coach. Step 2,
Super Bowl.
Step 3, Super Bowl. I just wish that I could live in a world where everything was that simplistic. Y'all are always protecting John Harbaugh. No, if John Harbaugh does something wrong, I'll call it out. We've been through it way too many times. I don't know what you think about last night is on. What world are you living in? It's just the dumbest, most boring and predictable thing to always do. Team lost, fire coach, win. I got nothing for you, man. You fire coaches when they suck. Like, that's when you fire your coach. When it doesn't work. This thing, just any other, it's just any other coach. Who? I don't know. It could just find your next John Harbaugh. That's always Ken's out. Nobody knew who John Harbaugh was. Right. You know who else nobody knew who they were? Matt Eberflus.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Everyone should go watch a Bears game this year.
Did anybody know who Robert? I mean, we knew because he was a commodity on the but sort of that. This notion that when you hire a coach, it just turns out to be one that it's nonsense. And it doesn't mean that you can't ever do it or that you couldn't find. It's just that's all you got. It's just boring and it's predictable. Take a walk. Ron is in Owings Mills. Now let's let him fire the coach. Good morning, Ron. How are you?
It's funny because I took a walk 30 minutes ago before making this call. I don't blame John Harbaugh for yesterday. But let me get to the things I want to talk about. Let's first talk about Lamar. I want to make sure you agree with me on this. Mm-hmm. When they have the bad snap, go down. Agree or disagree?
It's complicated, Ron. In hindsight, I think it's easy to say.
I know it's easy to say, but I really think that's the right thing to do.
I don't know what game the Ravens thought they were going to end up playing last night, and it might have been a game where they needed to score more points. This is a really Ron, I'm telling you, it's a fascinating conversation. It's one I'm literally sending a tweet about it right now. It's the thing I just said. Is the lesson that the Ravens need to learn that they need to be a team that in the playoffs is more boring? Like, is that the lesson? That they stop trying to make big plays and just try to make that was what the Bills did. The Bills had no interest in being exciting last night.
No,
all they wanted to do,
they played clean.
They just wanted to get through it somehow, some way. And is that the lesson that the Ravens need to learn? And it's, I think we want to oversimplifying it by saying you have to go down on that ball. I don't know that we want that. Like that is antithetical to the greatness of Lamar Jackson.
It's part of what makes Lamar,
right.
But I also think in certain moments, like obviously you can't take what makes Lamar special. I get that. But there are some critical situations, like when you have a botch mishap, you don't always have to make the splash play. Right. There are times where it's okay to just go down and live to fight another day. And I don't feel like part of it is what makes Lamar great, and I understand you really don't want to take that away from him. But part of it is you have to have a feel as the quarterback in there to just say, I'm special. I'll get it the next play.
That might be it might be the lesson that has to be learned by this franchise moving forward, is that they have to learn to be a different team in the playoffs than they are in the regular season. And for what it's worth, the Chiefs have decided to become that team all throughout the season. Like the Chiefs have just said, we are going to be the super boring. That's who we are now as a franchise. Is the most boring team you could ever possibly imagine, despite literally having Patrick Mahomes, the most exciting player that we had ever seen until Lamar Jackson came along. Right?
Yeah.
Like that.
No, I hear you. They'll learn it. I mean, they're going to learn it the hard way because it's now 4 of 8 years they've had multiple turnovers in Lamar's career, and I can't defend that. Todd Monken, did you have an issue at the goal line? He gives it to Henry on first and goal at the 2.
Second down, it's the RPO.
Second and goal at the 3.
Yeah.
Does Henry need another touch there, in your opinion?
Yes, but again,
it's easy to say.
It's
easy.
Again, that's the difficult part about this, right, Ron? Like, yes, I would prefer. The real question that I was asking last night is, again, this goes back to being the boring team. Do you get to first and goal from the 2 and say, we're running that Mark Andrews thing 3 times, and we are confident that if we run it 3 times, we will get into the end zone in 3 plays. That to me is like in this evolution that we're talking about, is that the next evolution of being boring? And they were talking about it on the broadcast last night with the Bills late in the game. Like, why is Josh Allen running out of the shotgun? Why aren't teams just saying it's first and goal from the 2? It's not exciting. It feels pathetic, but we're just going to line our tight end up under center, and we're going to fall forward and count on the fact that if he only gets a yard on the first one, he's going to get another yard on the next one.
Sure. No, that's fair. I mean, to me, with everything Derrick Henry's done this year, and I know it's easy to second guess, did he get enough? I'm just saying in that particular moment, this is just me, the fan, Glenn, watching this team the whole year. I would probably give Derrick Henry another touch.
And I would say, Ron, I felt in general, like in the first half, they did start to get away from Derrick Henry a little bit too much. But to their credit, in the second half,
they came back.
They came back to it. So
I'm just saying, on that particular drive where Bateman falls at the 2-yard line, like, you got to score a touchdown there, Glenn,
right.
And you know that.
Right.
You can't score a field goal. Yeah. You can't score a field goal. Like, to me, that Mark Andrews. It's obvious. Like, I don't even want to discuss it. It's obvious, like, what happened. Lamar made a good enough throw there. I don't want to talk about Mark Andrews. And he dropped the ball in the 2019 Titans playoff game. Fine, I'm done with that. I just want to say this. I'm not firing John Harbaugh for last year. I actually don't blame John Harbaugh for yesterday's loss. As much as I get frustrated on Twitter, I'm saying that. I'm being honest with you. I will just say, and I don't want to get into the firing, but I'm just saying, over the past 5 years, there have been the same issues with the team. That is clear. He is the head coach. And like you said, maybe they're going to have to change certain things and how they go about it. I'm just saying, I'm just frustrated because I can't blame John for this game, but I do think I will blame John for a certain portion. Like last year's AFC title game, yes, the offense coordinator running it only 8 times. You're the head coach. You have to step in and get that fixed. I can't say that about this game. I don't know what to tell you, Glenn. This team chokes in the playoffs. I don't know who you want to give blame to that. Yeah. This group of players, Lamar is such a special player that I'd like to see him win a Super Bowl one day, but for whatever reason, they can't get over the hump. It's like the Washington Capitals a little bit. Like when they have to go through the whole thing for like choking every year in the playoffs, it feels like that.
That's sort of why I can't overreact to it either, Ron, is that like I think they've got the core of a group that can win a Super Bowl. I do. I just think that there have been disconnections that I don't know are connective tissue from year to year. Like I don't think that it's they can't do it. I think the answer is they haven't done it.
Well, turnovers are a connective issue.
For the last two, the turnovers are a connective issue, right?
Yeah,
for the last two times they've lost in the playoffs, they've had a common theme. Although, again, a year ago, we all believe that even with the turnovers, if they had just stuck with the run game, they would have won the game anyway. So I can't. It's hard because the turnover part is true, but none of us were sitting here saying, well, that's the reason why they lost the game last year. We all had the same belief. They lost the game a year ago.
The game. Obviously, they're super talented where they can still overcome these things. I'm just saying. But when you do those things, the margin for error for a great team like the Ravens with the talent, where, they could have won the Super Bowl last year, they could have won the Super Bowl this year, it dies down when you have the same mistakes. That's why I'm saying live to fight another day. Don't make the splat. Like, those things will bite you. And, again, I don't want to do the John Harbaugh. Everybody knows – you know how I feel about John Harbaugh. I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I'm just like, it. My position on that. I'm just saying I do think Lamar is good enough to win a Super Bowl one day. I just don't know. Like, the playoff thing is like, and it's not just him. This collective, they have an issue, and the regular season next year will not matter. It's going to be the same thing, Glenn, where they have to get over the hump. Maybe they will. Maybe we just have to be patient and see. Maybe even a couple more failures. I'm just saying. I don't know, man. I'm frustrated. That's all I got.
I understand entirely. All right, pal. We'll talk soon.
All right, I love it. Enjoy the Australian Open.
Thank you, buddy. Right. I will. You too. We're all going through it. It is what it is. Today's show is also brought to you by County Sports Zone. Everything you need to know about high school sports, you can find it at countysports.zone. It's proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. All right, let's dish out our slaps. Final time. We'll do a season-ending Pats and slaps, I'm sure, later on at some point. I say I'm sure. Maybe we'll do it later on this week.
You want to update the season-long list?
I mean, you can, but we're not just going to – yeah, we're not – right now it's just about this game and that we got an entire offseason to get through. Or we could talk about Maryland basketball. They survived.
Towson basketball. They also survived.
They survived, yes. Yeah. They also survived. A lot of survival this weekend. Not from the Ravens, but a lot of survival otherwise. Not that we won't be talking about those teams, and we'll do a lacrosse preview show, which was of course up in the air because I don't know, but now we'll do that, and we'll start looking ahead to baseball. Anyway,
well, I mean, we're in the same boat as 28 other teams.
I understand that. Some of those cities have like NBA teams or NHL teams, things along those lines that they can talk about.
Well, I mean, like my point, I guess the Dodgers should be like minus 110 to win the World Series.
Minus 110. They should probably be more like minus 250.
Everybody else is like an equal plus 500.
Not equal, but yeah, I get it. Jesus Christ. I don't even have time for that today. All right. I'm starting to think they might have a puncher's chance, though, the Dodgers.
Think so?
I'm starting
to
think.
Well, they still need...
Yeah, they still like 4 or 5 more players, and I think you could say they got a real puncher's chance. Hey, but the Orioles were in on Tanner Scott as long as he didn't want money.
Yeah.
Like, as long as... I don't remember how Andy Costco worded the tweet, but it was just like... It just made it worse. like, dude, what... we'll be in on these players... as long as we can get them at the numbers we want. But if they want money, we're out on these players. God. And you don't want to overreact to it. You don't want to do the bit, but you can't help but do the bit. Like, if you want the players, you got to pay the money. You don't get to decide what they're worth. There's no world. You don't get a banner for... or fiscal prudence. They will never give you a championship banner for boy, we nailed it. Tanner Scott was only and what was the number he ended up getting?
470.
Yeah. He was only a $15 million player, not an $18 million. They don't give you a banner for that. Ever. Like when you get together with your buddies that are other GMs, you might be like, yeah. God, sorry.
No, finish.
No, not the time.
All right.
Slaps. Five Ravens, most deserving of scoring. Remember, 2 must be offensive players, 2 must be defensive players. 5th can be another offensive player, another defensive player, a special teams player, or a coach. Rank them 5 to 1, with number 1 being your anti-man of the match. Get him in at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter, Glenn Clark Radio on Blue Sky. I gotta remember to post it on Blue Sky too. I gotta do that, Griffin. That's gonna have to be part of. But that it's not just you. Like we've got to be more active with Blue Sky. That has to be part of
I know what you mean.
It's got to be the way that it works. Got to be the way that it works. Oh, John in Little Rock's on Blue Sky now. I'll follow him back. All right, number 5.
Yeah, again.
What's that?
Making connections.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Getting involved. Again, somebody's going to get the $50 gift card to Casa Sin, so that's the one good thing you got going for you today. Unless, again, you're on a certain political team, and then you probably got a lot of good things going for you today. Number 5. I really did struggle who the second defensive player would be on this list. I've heard a couple people had Roquan as the guy, I guess just because of the lack of impact plays. Like, I can hear that. To me, the bigger story in the first half was that the D-line was getting pushed around, like getting shoved around in the first half. Both lines were getting shoved around. They were losing up front. And when I went back to look at what I thought was the biggest play for the defense in the first half, which was after Tavius Robinson stops Josh Allen cold and forces a 4th and 2, and you got a chance now to have scored a touchdown, get a stop without them scoring any points, and then maybe go score again. Like, to me, that when we get to 5 plays tomorrow, that one's going to be one that, because we're so obsessed with the turnovers, we're going to forget about. I thought this being a significant moment, too. I just think that Nnamdi Madubuike wasn't the player that he needed to be based on how much he got paid. Nnamdi Madubuike, that wasn't a double team. They didn't take him out of the equation on that play. He just got eaten up. Malik Harrison started that play as the one guy that was kind of unmanned, but there ultimately was a blocker. It's not like anyone came free and missed a tackle on that 4th down. But I just feel like Nnamdi Madubuike, this is where you prove that you were worth every penny. And if it's one blocker, you shed that blocker and you stop that play in the backfield. That's the on a day where the defense didn't have a lot to criticize. I'm nitpicking because the rules are the rules, but it's not that dissimilar to what people are saying about Roquan. It's you're getting paid $20 million. You got to find ways to be more impactful, to not just do your job, to not just say, well, I kept all my assignments, but to go. That's sort of the same way I feel there. And when the story to me of the first half was more about the D-line, like the D-line got shoved around in the first half. Nnamdi Madubuike gets to speak for him. He's my number 5.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I ultimately did put Roquan on my list for a lot of those same reasons. Where he was not. They were running the ball. They obviously weren't running it down the Ravens' throats or anything. But when they needed yards, when they were on the goal line, they ran the ball very well and obviously punched in the end zone three times when they were on the goal line. I thought about Travis Jones because of those same things where the D-line was not getting a whole lot of push. I thought he made enough. I don't know. I mean, he made enough. He made enough plays. I thought David Ojabo potentially. He didn't play a whole lot, but he didn't get any pressure. I mean, he was so bad that him falling on his face drew a flag. He was so bad that they were like, oh, that had to have been a hold, when it was really just him falling to the ground. I ended up going with Broderick Washington for similar reasons as Madubuike. I think Madubuike obviously has a good case with with this is what he's paid for. Broderick Washington also Madubuike was at least making some tackles. They were running it right up the middle every time. Broderick Washington had one tackle. He had one stop playing over half of all those rushing snaps when they were running the ball a lot, and they never got pushed. They never pushed him back into the backfield. So Broderick Washington is my number 5, and then Roquan my 4.
It was hard to settle on where to put Lamar Jackson on this list. It was very difficult because your inclination is number 2 behind Mark Andrews, right? Like it's not high from Mark Andrews is obviously going to be number 1 on this list. Yeah, I know, stunner, right? It's what a controversial thing to say. Your inclination is, well, the turnovers were the story, and 2 of them were Lamar Jackson. So your inclination is he gets to be number 2. But then that requires you to dissociate with the rest of the football game, right? Like, if all you want to do is harp on Lamar Jackson, it requires you to not recognize that, again, like, he did
the reason you were in it at the end.
Everything that you could possibly imagine otherwise. And I get it. Like, that's the nature of being a quarterback. You do get more opportunities. But he did. Like, he stepped up and delivered play after play. So he's going to be number 4 because of that. He has to be on the list. There's no question that he has to be on the list. He committed 2 turnovers. One of which is, it's so funny. One is more forgivable in the context of he's Lamar Jackson. You want him to try to be aggressive. You want him to try to make a play. But it was by far more painful because it led to them having the ball inside the 30-yard line. The other is more infuriating. There's just nothing. There's no reason to just throw the ball up like that. But ultimately, it didn't really hurt them all that. So it's weird. Like the 2 turnovers, one was more egregious than the other. The penalty of them, one was more. It was inversed. But to reflect the totality of it, it was. He has to be there. He has to be criticized. But to try to pretend like this is it's a fine line, man. And it's not me trying to protect Lamar Jackson. He doesn't need that. It's me I've got eyes. I watched the game. Lamar Jackson wasn't awful last night. He had 2 plays. 2 plays that were costly. He's number 4.
I did have him higher. I put my second defensive player here. I thought the defense played really well. It was really hard for me to narrow it down to 2 guys. So I had Roquan 4. So I had Roquan 4. For all the same reasons. He's supposed to be one of the best middle linebackers. He was very quiet. He was not getting into the backfield at all, and they weren't stopping the run. They weren't stopping the run enough, as much as they needed to. So Roquan Smith was my 4.
Brandon Stevens is my second defensive player because they were picking on him early as they would, and the only positive thing that you would say about Brandon Stevens is the only play he made all night was one that he would have been flagged for if the ball had just been thrown better. Like, there was nothing good that came out of Brandon Stevens last night.
I agree. Yeah.
It's funny because Ken Zales said, like, well, maybe they move him back to safety. I don't even know that Brandon Stevens can be back. Like, I don't know how you pay him money at this point. I just think that the well is that poisoned that, like, there isn't even a path forward for him to say, hey, the problem was he played well enough at cornerback that we had to try to make him a cornerback and we screwed it up, so let's try to. You're too far down the road. I also think that, again, in a world in which teams have money to spend and they got to spend it on somebody's going to be willing to pay Brandon Stevens. Not what he would have gotten a year ago had he been a free agent. But still, there'll be somebody that's willing to give some sort of money to Brandon Stevens. I do not see a future for Brandon Stevens in Baltimore. Number 3.
My number 3 was Tyler Linderbaum. So I had Lamar and Andrews a little bit higher. It was not a good day for Linderbaum. That's getting pushed. He got pushed back a lot as well, and obviously
that's
led to the
problem. To me, Tyler Linderbaum has to be number 2 on this list. Like, has to be. We're just kind of because he's not the one that gets credited with the turnovers.
Right.
But Tyler Linderbaum had egregiously bad plays, and otherwise, maybe we'll see when it comes out how the grades. You can't say that all of the offensive line problems were his, but there was no push. Mm-hmm. He wasn't winning anything. Maybe not maybe in the second half he was winning a little bit more. And the two plays, those actions to me are as bad as turnovers. He doesn't end up owning turnovers, but if you have a bad snap as a center, it might as well be a turnover. If you're tripping your own players because you're getting pushed back into them, that's, for an offensive lineman, that's a turnover caliber play. Tyler Linderbaum had a dreadful night. Dreadful. And because he doesn't, again, we live in a fantasy football world where one player shoulders it's on them, but there's no statistic for it. We don't say Tyler Linderbaum committed the 2 turnovers, but Tyler Linderbaum had the caliber of turnover-worthy plays. Awful. Awful night. And again, that's the tricky. It's like Mark Andrews being number 1. These are their good players. There's no Brandon Stevens, it's easy to say, he's not going to be a part of the equation. Marcus Williams, he's going to be gone. Like, those things are easy. But last night, they lost in large part because their good players made egregious errors.
How much do they? I mean, I guess this is going back to the conversation we were having last night. But how much should they prioritize getting a real safety so that way they can use Kyle Hamilton how they want to use him, or do they stick with Kyle Hamilton?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I don't
deep safety.
I don't know what the answer to that is, because again, it was so much better with Kyle Hamilton in that role that like you kind of don't want to screw with it.
And it's also, but when you're in these situations where you are down by a score and you need a turnover, who's making 14's making that play? Like and he didn't have an opportunity to do that last time.
I don't know who that safety is. I don't know who that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know who that is.
Go get Derwin James.
Yeah, right.
Get both of them.
A couple people had Todd Monken on their list. Again, I get it. Like I felt it a little bit. I also would tell you that, like, again, lower on the list, it's not both of the 2-point conversion calls worked. But me personally, Glenn Clark, I have no interest in running a 2-point conversion play where Derrick Henry's not in the backfield. None. Zero. I have no interest in announcing to my opponent there's no chance we're giving the ball to Derrick Henry. I think they know that on the final one. Like, it's really hard to assume any back is just plunging forward in a one-play scenario. It's tough. I think in the one earlier in the game, the Ravens gashed them so much on that drive that you could have assumed that they would have been willing to give the ball back to Derrick Henry in that spot. So why take him out of the equation? I get it. Not the reason why the play didn't work. We all saw the same thing. Isaiah Likely is wide open. I get it. But I'm going to nitpick that decision. But on the whole, I don't think last night was about Todd Monken either. Certainly not in a place where, I'm hoping that the Jaguars we're not there.
I think Mark Andrews kept them around another year.
I hope. Maybe.
He was playing chess.
Maybe. Yeah, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Maybe. Continue to get me yours again at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter or Blue Sky, and somebody's going to get a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. We come back in. Jeremy Conn joins us as he does every Monday. We'll have a post-mortem. Maybe there's something else Jeremy wants to talk about. We got to do this. We'll keep doing it all morning. Still to come, Eric Edholm from NFL.com. It's on the way. Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
COVID-19 and flu viruses are circulating in Maryland. But don't worry, protection is within arm's reach. Protect your health with this year's COVID-19 and flu shots. It's safe and convenient to get them both at the same time. Flex your protection. For more information, visit health.maryland.gov/vaccines.
This message paid for by the Maryland Department of Health.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Misery Monday, whatever you want to call it, after the Ravens season ends in Buffalo. Stan the Fan Charles will be back in action this week. He and Chris Corman of the Baltimore Banner will get together, and you can watch that at facebook.com/PressBoxSports, youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video. I realized that we didn't do picks recap in that last segment as we normally do. I don't know whoever's behind. I don't know what's going on with our spreadsheet. But there is some drama going into tonight. Like, not at the top of the table. Top of the table is about set, as we said, because James and Ken picked the same way this weekend. It would require a miracle of miracles. James is going to win. Like, there's no way that he and Ken will both pick all 3 games that are left separately or different ways and that Ken will win all 3 of them. It's not plausible. James is going to win. At the bottom of the table, there is a little bit of interest after the disaster that was for me, Houston not being able to make a kick. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Those are the ones. And I'm sure Jeremy will concur. The ones that really piss you off, they're the ones where you handicap it correctly and then bizarre circumstances screw it up. Cover was right there waiting for him. Just had a kick blocked in the closing seconds. So that put me in a hole. But blessings be to both the Commanders and the Rams for statement covers. With the Commanders, of course, won going away. The Rams, they statement cover on a 6.5-point spread yesterday. So I'm back within 1 of John Proctor. Paul Valley feeling good today. John Proctor, a little bit nervous going into the championship game tonight, and we are on opposite sides. He's on Notre Dame. I'm on Ohio State. So a lot of drama. It could be even going into championship weekend, depending on how that plays out. We will see. All right, joining us now, Big Bad Morning Show 105.7 The Fan, ConcreteLocks.com. Hi, Jeremy Conn. How are you, my friend?
I mean, I've had better days, doing 4 hours of talking about that Ravens loss.
A lot of fun.
And then realizing you're going to text me and probably ask me more questions about it.
Right?
Yuck.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Yeah, this is the, you know what the goofy part about it is, too, is that, you always hear this from people, well, this is when it's good, right? Like, this is... The ratings are through. I'm like, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. This sucks. There's nothing fun about this, and it's crushing. There's a group of people that just have no interest in listening when the team loses. So the ratings aren't better when the team is bad. Like, maybe when there's a coaching change that you get, the interest in who's going to coach.
Yeah.
There's nothing good that comes from this. Businesses are less interested. It hurts, but nothing good comes from losing, ever. Like this thing that people are obsessed with the idea, like, you guys like it when the Orioles lose because then you can no, you're the dumbest human that's ever lived. It is bad for business, and the Ravens aren't that. Like, they just lost in the playoffs, but still, there's nothing positive that comes from it.
Yeah, and we've said this for years when it was a 16-game schedule. Ravens go 12-4, lose 2 games they shouldn't. And then, go into the postseason, go all the way, and then that's how you want it. Like those 4, you need a couple of losses just to keep where it's not like, oh my God, they're just going to win, so I'm not tuning in. I don't need, like, you need something, but make no mistake about it. A playoff loss, we're going to be living Groundhog Day over and over and over again until baseball starts.
Yeah, that's the reality. But
at least the Orioles had a great offseason. We don't need to talk about that, so things are good.
Hey, they were in on Tanner Scott if only he didn't want money. Like if only Tanner Scott had been like, I don't really want to get paid to play baseball this year, then the Orioles would have been willing to bring him back. So we got that. He got that going.
Well, who
us,
signed him?
Nice.
Oh yeah, the Dodgers. They signed everybody. They got more players than eligible.
I got to be honest with you. I think they have a puncher's chance this year. I think that they're maybe another player or two away from having a half a chance. Look, we've been through it. It's boring, and that's the other thing too about this particular playoff loss is it's boring analysis. You lose a turnover margin 3-0. That's what's going to happen. Like, yes, you could have still miraculously been in the game, but you don't need to overanalyze it. And that's the problem with this is like I can't scream about a coach. There's no one to cut. Like, you're not going to cut Mark Andrews for F's sake. He's one of your best football players.
God, the people wishing death upon him today. I hope you guys go back to your shanties.
Get a hold of yourselves. Like, there's just not a whole lot more to analyze about the game itself.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, so the things I were looking at, and I didn't even realize it until this morning that the Ravens didn't punt at all yesterday.
Yeah.
Which is such a crazy thing. And then when you look at Josh Allen's stats, you're going 120 sets. Hold on, that's what.
Right.
How many did he throw for?
Right.
You're going because all he did was manage the game and run in those 2 touchdowns. I don't want to say all he did because that's very dismissive. But like when you look in the grand scheme of things, you're going, I watched this whole game. How did Buffalo win? and again, it's the 3 turnovers, and it's that stupid ass penalty call right before the half. And I'm not blaming the loss on that, but that is such a huge momentum swing from a team attempting a 48-yard field goal in those conditions and getting the ball back with 1:13. Or potentially giving up a touchdown, which they did, and never seeing the ball again until the second half. I just thought that was huge. And I don't – like, for all the things that the eye in the sky looks at and replay assist, how is that not one that you go,
right.
It's either nothing or it's offensive pass interference?
Yeah. No.
And either one I'm fine with. I'm just not fine with defensive pass interference.
No, it was a dreadful call. But again, like dreadful calls happen. The holding on Deion Dawkins was dreadful on the
happened in the Kansas City game to Houston. So,
100%.
Like the late hit on the quarterback or unnecessary
just atrocious call.
Yeah.
No question about it. I struggle with this because if there is a lesson to me, and I kind of worked my way through this in my monologue earlier, if there is a lesson to take from this, I wonder if the lesson is the Ravens have to learn how to be more boring. And the Chiefs have decided, like, it's not even just a playoff thing with the Chiefs anymore. The Chiefs are like, we have this generational, arguably most talented quarterback that's ever played the game, and we don't even care if he ever wins an award ever again or if he's ever even named All-Pro, and he doesn't care anymore about it either. Like, he's, okay, cool, I'm just going to go keep winning Super Bowls, and I'll be boring as sin. And the Bills decided last night they were plenty content to be boring. Like, they had no interest in doing anything that was going to have even the smallest amount of risk involved. And I just wonder if, with the story of 2 of the turnovers last night, both being crimes of aggression, where you don't really want to be that mad at Lamar Jackson for trying to be Lamar Jackson. You just, is the lesson to be learned specifically for the playoffs for the Ravens moving forward, you've got to learn how to be a team that just decides it's okay to be boring. It's okay. Yep. Winning football can just be not screwing up.
You want to know the best thing about Kansas City, and I hate admitting this, is like, I've said this before, they make all the layups. So the screen passes for touchdowns, it's 3rd and short, we're not messing around with this, we're going to pick this up, we're going to run a safe play here. Like, they just don't make mistakes. And Steve Spagnuolo goes, hey, is it 3rd and long? It's a passing down? Yeah, I'm going to just send pressure from all over the place. You find out where it's from and throw it in that direction. And they've done that historically time after time after time. Now, people like to talk about the calls they get, sure. But those things happen. But also, when you're this good, you do have to be lucky. And one of the things I keep going back from the Ravens' last 2 seasons are they were one of the luckiest teams in staying healthy these past 2 years.
No
and
doubt.
I think we forgot what it's like to lose somebody of significance. And that's why I feel like they've really missed the boat in these 2 seasons of not only getting to the Super Bowl, but winning it. Like when you break down everything from an analytical standpoint, the Ravens were the best team in the NFL this year. And last year they were the best team in the NFL, and they didn't even make it to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, you can blame who you want. Sometimes it's just bad luck. But at some point you're hoping it changes because the narrative keeps getting larger and larger for Lamar. I even brought up, Manning from 99 to, 2006 or whatever, those 7 years,
Right.
99 to 2005, 80 regular season wins and no Super Bowl appearances. Same thing with Lamar, the only 2 guys in the history to do that. And then now you look at it and go, Peyton won the very next year and beat the Bears in the Super Bowl and finally made that run. But, it's not like it's guaranteed to happen for Lamar. You're just hoping that he gets past that.
It's not, but it would also, the thing I would say is it sort of lines up with the being boring thing. And I'm not trying to – I don't say this is a knock on Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's one of the greatest players that ever played the game. But Peyton Manning didn't win 2 Super Bowls by carrying his team to 2 Super Bowls. He won 2 Super – I mean, the second one is almost comical, right? He was awful at that point. But,
he was just – he was so good. Yeah. He was so good in that game. That first drive, he made such a great first drive that he didn't even need to play the rest of the game.
Just didn't even.
In my mind, that's how I saw it.
That's the way you saw that one.
Dude, he threw one pass. I swear it was an out route, and it looked like a track and field shot putter.
Right.
He had it by his head.
I actually had Peyton Manning people coming after me. Not that I was down on Peyton Manning. It was just a comical. It's hilarious. That's the reason why he gets to call himself a 2-time Super Bowl champion. But he does. No one in history will ever knock Peyton Manning, but it's almost a larf. It's like a Saturday Night Live sketch. That's how he became a 2-time Super Bowl champion. But again, even the first one, it's not like the second. The second one is it's a farce. But the first one, he just was willing to be along for the ride. He was just, let's not screw this up. Well,
he's always been that guy too, where people want to talk about him throwing it. He will run it if he reads your defense and thinks that you're giving up. That guy would drive me so crazy at times. I don't know any quarterback that ran it more on 3rd and 7 and 3rd and 8. If you showed him a light box, he'll run it and see if one of his guys, punches one. He had the opportunity to break that record at home and have all of his receivers have 10 touchdowns against the Ravens. And then he ran the ball in on the one when everybody's like, why isn't he breaking this at home? It's kind of right. He doesn't care about that. He only cared about winning. And it's so funny to me because in the 2 Super Bowl losses, he's had 2 things happen to him that had never happened in Super Bowl history. That goofy-ass onside kick to start the second half that they recovered against the Saints. And they started the effing Super Bowl off that I went to with a safety, and the ball snapped over Manning's head and out of the back of the end zone. So,
but at least the rest of that game was close. At least it was really competitive afterwards.
Oh, man, that game opened up like the floodgates.
I
remember I was arguing with people saying, are you kidding me? Peyton broke so many passing records in the Super Bowl. It's not his fault. It was 43-8.
Yeah, it's awful. But the point, that he was willing at some point to say, okay, I just have to not get in the way. We have a good enough, and I'm not, I don't, when you say that, it sounds like you're taking a shot at him. I'm not taking a shot at him. I think it speaks to his greatness that at some point he recognized this is about winning a Super Bowl. And Lamar Jackson is unquestionably great. There is no amount of doofusry on talk shows that is going to change the greatness of Lamar Jackson. He is one of the greatest players to have ever played in the NFL ever. But this specific animal feels like it's going to require the next lesson for him, the next lesson for the team, and it's very similar to Mark Andrews is trying to make a play downfield. He thinks he can get to the outside and break it. But at some point, I feel like the lesson is going to have to be that's not how we're going to win. We're going to win by saying this was already a good play, or let's cut our losses. We're a better team. We are, because we have Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. So it's okay if we've got to run another play.
See, the funny thing to me, just going back to last night's game, is that there are a lot of people that want to point out certain things and say this is the reason they lost and this is the reason they lost. There have been so many bad luck, goofy things that have happened to the Ravens. And, I do consider Mark Andrews dropping a 2-yard pass that's going to go for a 2-point conversion with basically no one. It might be one of the easiest catches he has, but He just took his eye off it for a second to make sure where he was in bounds and that he's going to get in. And with that, you see the bobble. And I'm not making excuses for him, but, like, you had that. You had him running in the middle of the field and the ball gets punched out. Lamar's fumble going all the way back to being first and goal for the Bills as Von Miller scoops it as it just slips out of his hands. Last year, you had Zay Flowers fumble into the end zone and a touchdown that should have tied it. Like, the weird thing is Lamar did everything that you would want a quarterback to do in the waning moments of that game. And as Emmanuel Acho said, because of Mark Andrews' drop, we now get to criticize him for another 8 months.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let whoever wants to do that, they can do it.
Yeah.
By all means, they can do whatever they want to do. I would continue to remind everybody, you don't have to watch their shows, you don't have to interact with their content, you don't have to click retweet and try to dunk on them. You can just ignore it. You can just
That's what they're looking for.
Ignore it. Ignore it. Ignore it. Ignore it. But they won't choose to do that. Can this Bills team go to Kansas City and win?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think this is going to be such an emotional letdown from winning this game that they go in there and then they come out flat and Kansas City does what you just talked about, be boring and win. I mean, at one point this season, I don't know if it's changed since then, there were 3 teams that hadn't scored over 30 points. Now, I know the Giants did score 40-some against the Colts, so they broke that. But it was like the Giants, the Jets maybe. There were 2 really bad teams, and the Chiefs were the other one that hadn't scored 30 all year long. That was like going into Week 16. So it just kind of shows you, like, they're winning different. But now their wide receiving core and even in the backfield, they're healthier. So I think the Chiefs are going to do everything that Baltimore should have been able to do against them. I think the Chiefs are going to run the football on the Bills, and that Mahomes is going to make plays in the passing game yet again.
That's the way that I feel. That's the sense that I have, and I've kind of thought it was going to be Kansas City Philly all along, and I think it's going to be Kansas City Philly again. With I guess what's the latest on Jalen Hurts is.
Yeah, I don't know. There was somebody saying that they thought he was on something at the end of the game, meaning some pain medication, which wouldn't surprise me. But, like, you know, when we talk about certain things, like Matt Stafford's ribs, I was telling my wife, she was watching the game with me, I said, if you've ever broken ribs or bruised them, in the moment it's painful, but if you're playing, you can play through it. As soon as that adrenaline runs out, you're like, oh my God, it hurts to breathe. It hurts to sneeze. It hurts to laugh. So I don't know what the deal is with his knee and how significant it is. I did see him roll out left and right, which looked good late, but again, we'll see how much damage there is to that. And then you get to face an opponent with familiarity to you in Washington. So that's a fun story, even if you don't like the Commanders.
I think it's we had this conversation a couple times. I think it's an incredible story. I think it's I think Jaden Daniels is like the most likable, like, young. I can't help it. I despise everything Washington, and yet I can't help it. Like, he's too likable. He's too good. He's too. Now again, like, we're doing a little bit of like revisionist history when, well, he's the greatest rookie quarterback of all time. Yes, he's also 24 years old. Like we got to keep some things in context about when we just say things for the sake of saying them. Like, what he's doing is incredible. I also think he was in a better position to be able to do it, and quarterbacks that stick around in college football for 5 years are going to be in better positions to do this in ways that guys that only played for 3 years because they weren't allowed to make any money weren't. Like,
yeah, I don't want to take anything away from him. People also have to look at what Detroit's – take away the Minnesota game. Look at what Detroit's defense did down the stretch.
Yep.
And I'm not saying Minnesota was a fraud, but they came into the playoffs. That last regular season game got hammered by Detroit, and then comes into the playoffs, and the Rams did the same damn thing to them. So all that talk about Detroit's defense being fine because they're winning 41-38 or whatever, like, that's all great. And they had a good game against Minnesota, so I'm not trying to be totally dismissive, but, you know, they face that defense and they face the Tampa Bay defense that can't stop the pass. And again, they went on the road, won 2 games, not trying to be dismissive, but to sit here and go, this is the greatest rookie quarterback of all. Like, I mean, pump your brakes. He could be. But just pump your brakes on it a little bit.
Well, I think there's no question that he's good, and I think that he's already the best quarterback in the NFC. Like, I don't think the NFC is a very good quarterback.
You know what's weird? You just said that, and I went, oh.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he might be.
I think he is, and now I think he'd be the 5th best quarterback in the AFC today, but I think he's the best quarterback in the NFC, and I think that's the reality of it. All right, so now what? Now what happens in your world? What is what
Well,
do
I
things
watched
look
the
like?
national championship as I think Ohio State's going to win and cover. It's back to today's MLK Day, so there's a lot of like afternoon NBA, NHL, college hoops. So that'll probably fill the rest of my day. But I got to admit, this does suck, man. Like, I'm
It's
not
deflating.
your prototypical Ravens fan. I root for the Ravens because it's good for business, and I like a lot of the guys on the team. And I'd like to see them win. Like, I feel like I'm doing the Bronx Tale bit where I'm crying for Mickey Mantle, but he's not going to cry for me. I feel so bad for Mark Andrews because I think the world of the guy. And if he had one of them, it's like, okay, then you get your chance to redeem yourself, and you flub that too. The hate that he's getting online today from Ravens fans is just absurd, man.
Mark Andrews is a Ring of Honor Raven. He is one of the great players in franchise history. I mean, he's a top 15 type of Raven, and this sucks. It sucks that it's his story. I hope that a year from now, Mark Andrews is rewriting his history, but
Yeah,
I can't.
And for me, like, I don't have a daughter, but I'd love for him to date one of my
That
sons.
would be great,
That's how
right?
highly
Yeah,
I
that
think
would be
of him.
real.
Yeah. Yeah, so
have you tried? Have you even suggested they try? Have you even
Well, you know what?
like?
No, because like the kid's got to come around more. I'm going to make the suggestion. Have you guys ever made a run at Mark Andrews? Like, this is the type of guy that I'd like to see you guys marry, if you're going to marry a guy, of course. But
the way. Oh,
my son's girlfriend who lives with us might have a problem with that. But hey, whatever.
I mean,
She'll
look,
get
I
over it.
think she'll understand ultimately. It's Mark Andrews, right?
Yeah. Yes,
That's
of
just
course.
the way that it goes.
I mean, we can't have Dennis Pitta. Why not Mark Andrews? I mean, it's fine.
All right, buddy. Well, we'll get back to doing the stuff that we really like to do in the next couple weeks. We'll get back to the nonsense.
Can I
We'll get
can I
back-
throw
yeah.
something at you real quick? So I
Please.
did watch American Primeval. If you haven't seen it,
I
it's
have
excellent.
not.
Yeah, 6-part series on Netflix. Really, really good.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's going to be a standalone thing, so they can't ruin it with a sequel, but they might try. And then on top of it, I just started watching Landman, which I've been putting off. It is excellent. It's funny. It's classic Billy Bob Thornton.
It's on my
Closer
list.
closer to Bad Santa Billy Bob Thornton.
Right.
It doesn't hurt that Ali Larder gets nude in the show too, and it's just there's just so many hot women in that
I didn't
show.
know Allie Larder was still working. That's great news.
She's 48 and looks phenomenal,
Good
man.
for her, man. Griffin and I watched the Kieran Culkin movie last Friday. We watched A Real Pain.
Is it good? Because I was
It's-
going to watch that this
It's
week.
really good, but I guess I didn't spend enough time like learning what it was all about. Like it is
Oh no, I did watch that. That's the one where he's he meets his friend or whatever.
his
or-
cousin. Yeah, he and his
cousin, yeah.
his cousin go to
Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, it was like it was a lot. Like I did not know what I was getting into. Like I thought it was kind of like almost slapstick, and it was an
Yeah, I'm
adventure.
trying to think of what the movie was that I was going to watch this week that just came out, and I can't remember it. But like I did, my wife and I sat down and watched that, and when I started reading reviews after the movie, because I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Maybe some people didn't like the ending, or it's I don't know, but like the awkwardness of certain parts of the movie
Right.
made me laugh so hard. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like the posing with the statues and all that. Like there were some.
Yeah.
But I clearly did not read enough about what I was getting into. Like it's deep, man. Like
Yeah.
it is. And now I understand the title a little bit more. I know Saturday Night is hitting streaming in the next like week or two, so I'll definitely I want to spend time with that.
I already
as
saw
well.
that.
You went to theater and saw that?
I have ways.
Oh,
I have different ways
okay.
of seeing things.
Look at you.
But I
Look
did
at
watch
you.
it. It's entertaining.
Okay.
So the guy that played the Riddler on Gotham is playing Chevy Chase.
Okay.
And I thought the Chevy Chase stuff was really good. J.K. Simmons playing Milton Berle, and the interaction between Milton Berle and Chevy Chase made me really laugh and go, oh, geez, what a ball buster Milton Berle was. So,
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
All right.
really good stuff.
All right. I'll spend time with it. At JCon Sports, ConcreteLocks.com, Big Bad Morning Show. Appreciate you, buddy. We'll talk again next Monday. Thank you.
All right, guys. See you.
That's Jeremy Conn with us every Monday. Here on
Saturday night does
GCI.
not hit streaming until Saturday night. So
Huh, that's quite the time for it. They're also like I want to watch the Peacock. There's like a 4-part behind the scenes
yes,
thing
yeah, the
that I
SNL
want. I do
thing.
want to
Yeah,
watch
I
that
can't
too. And then
SNL
they're doing the
50,
live. They're doing the live thing in
yeah.
February.
Is that
That's
after
I
the
think the
Super
week
Bowl?
after the Super Bowl or the Sun. Oddly, I believe it's a Sunday night.
Oh.
after the Super
I thought
Bowl.
the show was called Saturday Night.
I'm aware. I believe they're doing it on Sunday night. I remember them doing a 40th anniversary special. I think it was the same concept. But yeah, I believe that will be next Sunday night. Or not next Sunday, but the Sunday night following the Super Bowl for that. All right, we continue to move along here on a Monday edition of the program. Today's show also brought to you by, this one will again be brought to you by the CIAA tournament, Griffin.
Baltimore is welcoming the excitement of the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament back to the CFG Bank Arena from February 25th through March 1st. Tickets are available, so you can get them now at Ticketmaster.com. Again, the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament at CFG Bank Arena from February 25th through March 1st.
All right, our buddy Eric Edholm will join us next from NFL.com. We'll see what he thinks we should have learned from the Ravens' loss to the Bills. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our very special Best of 2024 issue. On the cover, we celebrate our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Lamar Jackson, as Bo Smolka profiles what the quarterback means to the community beyond the football field. Also inside, we celebrate the top people, performances, and moments of the year in local sports. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always read the entire issue and find the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCRs, continue the whatever this is. It's the Monday after the Ravens.
Glenn Clark Radio.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think.
Nobody's having a good time. That's what it is.
Brian on Facebook says, not going to lie, I had a feeling earlier in the season when we lost to Kansas City by a toe that this just wasn't going to be our year. Hope that we get the secondary stronger and start applying more pressure to the quarterback. Seems like those have dropped off tremendously for us.
Okay. They actually got after the quarterback really well this season. Like, that's kind of the problem. And last night, it wasn't the story. The Bills weren't trying to throw downfield all that much. That is actually the interesting part about, like, what – it's easy to say, hey, that Bills team doesn't beat the Chiefs on the road. Well, I do think the Bills will be a different team on the road than they were at home. I think last night was about at home and getting a lead, and they put themselves – now, it would also be interesting. I don't know, like, their decision to not go for it on 4th and goal, if they get even a yard on the previous play, is that decision different? Like, that was a legit 2 yards that they needed there. And I think that made it ultimately a really easy decision. Is it different if a field goal there only makes it a 7-point game instead of making it an 8-point game? There's a lot of I don't knows. But they were content to play the game because they were at home and there were certain game circumstances. I don't know that it'll be the same in Kansas City. I don't know that. And to be fair, early on in the game, they went for it on 4th down when they were trailing 7-0 because that's what the game dictated they were going to need to do. They didn't want to allow the Ravens to open up a multi-score lead and continue to shove Derrick Henry down their throats. They're puffing their chests about how they did a great job against Derrick Henry. They did an okay job against Derrick Henry in the first half. Like, if the standard is didn't let him utterly overwhelm us, then yes. Or if the standard is better than the last time, then yes. But, like, the idea that they came up with we solved the puzzle. No, you got 3 turnovers. Like, that's what happened. I don't think the Bills are good enough to go win in Kansas City, but it's the NFL. It's the same thing. I didn't think they were good enough to beat the Ravens, but again, things happen in the NFL, and if you turn the ball over 3 times, you get that. That's what my gut tells me. I think the Ravens are going to need to get another legitimate outside corner. Yes, can you reasonably expect Nate Wiggins to take a step forward next year? Absolutely. Now, who else? What is your other answer for a legitimate outside corner? They have to address that. I am not opposed to adding more to the edge rush. I'm also I have an amount of I'm like bullish about Chuck Smith. I'm a guy that's been obsessed with edge rush the last couple of years. Obsessed. I talked about it ad nauseum. But at some point I got to sit down and say, a group that we have had no expectations for whatsoever, that's been made up of guys that we believe were either past their prime or were never going to have a prime, they've gotten incredible production out of the last 2 years. I'm kind of getting to the point where there's almost an amount of hubris with Chuck Smith as just a special sauce. And they're going to be able to figure it out edge rush-wise. And that's dangerous, and I probably shouldn't talk that way, and I'd certainly rather have a guy that's just that good and you can count on. I'd love to have a Terrell Suggs. Is that guy available? I'd love to have him. But I can't knock that part of this. That part of this, they solved, man. All right, our next guest told us what it is that we should learn from this game over at NFL.com last night, and I want to go back and forth on one of those because I think one of them is really interesting in particular. He is a longtime friend of ours, Mr. Eric Edholm, back with us now here on GCR. Eric, it's Glenn. It's great to catch up. We're not having a great day in Baltimore, obviously, but we appreciate you taking the time for us.
Oh, of course, yeah, and I'm here to do the autopsy or whatever. Maybe part of it, I know you said you wanted to push back on a couple
Well,
spots,
I don't even know that I want to push back. That's the funny part. Like,
yeah.
I think the most interesting part when I was reading your What We Learned piece at NFL.com was number 2, the Bills' conservative offensive game plan effective but open to questioning. And I think this is the fact, like, as I've tried to figure out what to take away, because the big picture in Baltimore is Ravens come up short in the playoffs again. Yes, that's true, right? Like that's part of their DNA at this point. They have to own that. But what is the actual problem? I don't have that, because they'll be talking head doofuses that try to make it Lamar Jackson fails in the playoffs. That's not true. Lamar Jackson's actually played really well in the playoffs now for the last couple. I don't have a singular answer, but what jumps out at me from last night is the Bills were incredibly content to be boring as hell.
Yeah.
The Kansas City Chiefs have literally Pat Mahomes, like the most generational quarterback, he and Lamar, whatever you want to do, ever, and they have been wildly content to be boring as sin. And I wonder, given that 2 of the Ravens' turnovers were crimes of aggression, Lamar's fumble on a bad snap, where he's just trying to be Lamar Jackson, and sometimes there's bad snaps, and I pick it up and I turn them into touchdowns anyway. And then Mark Andrews, who's got this huge gain and a huge play, but wants to turn it into something bigger than that, instead of just saying, "Hey, it's not there. I need to get down, and we need to." I wonder if the bigger lesson is the Ravens now need to learn they're a really good team. They have the right to win. It's okay to choose to be boring in the playoffs.
Yeah, part of me wants to say, I don't like that.
Right.
Like, as a football viewer, right? I'm pretty neutral. I don't have a favorite team. I don't have a rooting interest. I'm in it for the best action possible. So I am a little bit removed from the situation. But yeah, it's hard not to think, as questionable as these approaches are, we live in an age of analytics telling us when to be aggressive and when not to. And it's more often the former than the latter. And it's important to go for it on fourth downs and the 2-point conversions and all these things. But at the same time, you can also see instances where it really costs your team. And it's not, it's easy to question those things because we see them. They're tangible. This is 4 missed points in a 2-point loss. This is a -3 turnover game on the road against an MVP caliber quarterback, right? These are the things that clearly stood in the way of victory. And yet at the same time, I don't know that they were necessarily emblematic of who the Ravens were this season as a whole, right? I think I kind of quickly added it up this morning. I think they lost the turnover battle like 3 times this year, like where the opponent had more takeaways than they did. And so, penalties, if I would have guessed the other day, I would, if I said, what's the path for Baltimore to blow this game? I would have probably said, well, penalties have been their bugaboo all year long, right? So, on the one hand, I'm saying I don't want to make too much of this one game, but when you see other teams also take this approach, it's hard not to think maybe there's some truth to it. Maybe we're a little bit blinded by this hyper-aggressive sort of mentality that has existed for a while now, and the two teams playing for a spot in the Super Bowl to represent the AFC did kind of tack against the wind on that one.
I don't know that it's the answer. And again, somebody would point out, hey, it's the Washington's not doing that, right? And they're now that's the NFC, and the answer there is a little bit different. I think it might just be what it causes. And it always goes back to me, that parallel that like Lamar Jackson is dealing with, and the best defense that some people will have is, well, hey, it took Peyton Manning a while. And part of it was Peyton Manning had to be boring. Like, he had to just kind of be along for the ride in order to win for as great as he is. And no one questions Peyton Manning's greatness. Like, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks that ever played the game. But we don't ever have to say he never won a Super Bowl, because he was able to just kind of tag along and not get in the way of a team that was able to win. And then obviously the second one was comical. But like the first one, he just tagged along. He didn't have to go do it. He could be boring.
It was arguably his worst season statistically. I mean, or what, in that era. I mean, like you said, obviously 2015 he was benched and blah blah blah. But 2006, the 2 prior years, he was blowtorching the record book. And again, we all praised him for doing it because he was, I think at the time, the best quarterback individually in the NFL, even over Tom Brady, who had won the 3 titles by that point. But still, I mean, the point is, sometimes you almost have to kind of just, I don't want to say tone it down. You never want to, I don't think you ever want to sort of neuter your superstar quarterback. But when the overall approach is a little bit more measured, there's certainly something to be said for it. So, I mean, even look at Josh last night. There was that brief moment where he gets stuffed at the goal line, and he kind of turns around and looks at James Cook like, I'm going to flick you the ball. That's what the old Josh would have done. And you heard Tony Romo say no, and I was screaming no, and don't do it. Like, you can't have a game end like that. So sometimes it's just sort of softening the edges and knowing when to strike and when to kind of live for another day, I guess.
And with the interesting part being, is, as you point out, and as others would point out, it also, the Bills being willing to do that probably has something to do with the fact that the Ravens did have a chance, right? Like, the Bills changed who they were, whereas if maybe they continue to be more aggressive, perhaps they open up a bigger lead and the Ravens are never in it. Like, I can't say it's definitive. I do think that it's unique to the situation. I don't know that the Bills will be as boring next week in Kansas City. My gut would tell me that they're going to look at that game and say, we have to, if we're going to win this game, we have to take some more chances. We have to do some of those things. I don't know that I can tie it up all on a nice bow, but I do think that like the specific crimes of aggression, the trying to do more when more isn't what's needed, that's the gray area where you would look at it and say that's maybe the next lesson for the Ravens to learn in the playoffs is just there's a line between be special but don't be not this. Like that Zay Flowers a year ago. Right. Yeah, all of it. That's the part that you got to learn.
Yeah, it really is. And again, it's not just Lamar, obviously, not just Mark Andrews too. I mean, there's you can point to other players along the way too, and the overall approach. But I think there's something to what you say there, and I don't know. I didn't walk away from this game thinking Lamar's never going to win a Super Bowl, right? I thought he played a B or B- game or whatever, and had moments where he clearly looked in command, and obviously that last drive looked like the kind of thing you put up in the in his career highlights and the franchise annals and all that stuff. But it also ended the way it did. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I still feel pretty confident that there will be a time when everything lines up and Lamar's hoisting the trophy because, boy, I know we talk about all the star quarterbacks and you still have to deal with the loaded AFC and everything, but I guess I would be shocked that there isn't a year in the next 2 or 3 seasons where, he can't sort of balance that magic act with also the Ravens taking a smart enough approach to, kind of even the whole thing out, I guess.
Eric Edholm, NFL.com, with us here on GCR. Eric, the other difficult part about analyzing this is that, I don't even have a huge take. To me, the answer is you try to keep as much of the team together as you can, and you just go back out and hope that – I don't think there's a bigger picture take that you can offer. I don't think they need to dramatically change anything about the football team. We were all nervous about the offensive line coming in. Ironically, the offensive lineman that was the biggest problem last night was your best offensive lineman, Tyler Linderbaum. I don't know. I don't have a big takeaway other than just this sucks. 365 days from now, you're just hoping that the result is different and that you're moving on. I don't think you're changing a whole lot about this team.
Allow me to put a positive spin on this. And I think that's a good thing. I can remember there have been specific instances. One that sticks out was when the Packers were kind of in the heyday, the Aaron Rodgers MVP kind of era. They had won a Super Bowl, 3, 4, 5 years before or whatever it was. And they ran into the gauntlet, the Colin Kaepernick option game. It would be like a team facing Lamar now and just getting absolutely gashed. Mm-hmm. And that's the lasting memory of the season is, we got destroyed. And, what did Mike McCarthy do? He went out and sent the staff down to Texas A&M to study how to defend the option and made it this talking point that everybody's sort of obsessed over all off season. Look at the Chicago Bears when they missed that field goal, the double doink against the Eagles. They put on this monstrous kicking display, and we're going to bring in 30 guys from, all across the globe and have a kicking competition. Point being, if you have one of those playoff games where there's some patently obvious storyline that evolves, and maybe it's an extension of the season, it's going to be the sole focus, sometimes to a detriment for a team in the off season. So the good news is that, yes, you'd love to upgrade the edge position. Yes, you probably need to address the offensive line, given just that Ronnie Stanley's a free agent. I think Makari might be too.
Yeah, he is.
So there are obviously, questions there. But we're not coming out of this game saying, oh, you have to replace Mark Andrews. No, look, let's be reasonable here. Let's think about big picture.
He's a part of the solution. Yes, he's a big part of the solution.
Yeah, right.
In fact.
So maybe I'm being a little too sort of Pollyanna-ish about this, but I think their off-season plan to me is no different today than it was Saturday, whatever that might have been.
Do you make anything of the argument that just this hangs over them, that this is in your DNA and it becomes more difficult to get it out of your DNA and the weight of this is too much? And, someone would argue that's why it requires some sort of big I think it's comical to suggest that, but I at least am going to present it because it is a topic of conversation.
Yeah, I think we put those to bed, right? I mean, for the most part, right? It's not as if they're turning into complete pumpkins in the playoffs. It's usually, we can point back to 2 or 3 plays where the game slipped away from them. And, every game, of course, is different, right? And so comparing a postseason game to one last year or 3 years before, or any of that is to me a fool's errand. But yeah, I mean, obviously you are defined in so many ways by your postseason success, and that is going to be, like you said, the kind of talisman they hang around their necks. But I think big picture, you also look and say it's a tough field to get through every single year, and there are plenty of good teams that missed out. If you're a Detroit Lions fan or if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, two teams that went 29-5 during the regular season, but 0-2 in the playoffs. How do you sort of square that circle? Like, was this season a success or not? I mean, yes, it was, and so 31 out of 32 teams walk away with that feeling. If you happen to be good enough to make the postseason every year but not win it, you somehow get nicked harder than some teams that never make the postseason. So, yeah, I feel like it's sort of an unfair storyline.
Yeah, it's a good point. There's 4 teams left, and only one of them will feel like their season was a success if they don't win the Super Bowl. Right?
Oh, crazy to think, but that's how it is.
Yeah, like the Commanders are the only team that's left that the season could end without it being a Super Bowl, and they'd be like, oh, that was a successful season, right? They're the one. Everybody else, either they're winning the Super Bowl or it was a disappointment. I guess that's probably more measured if it's Kansas City. They're like, yeah, it's a disappointment, but you can't win all of them.
We're okay.
Right? Like,
we've built up a little credibility around here.
That's the way that it goes. What's your gut tell you about Todd Monken? He's interviewed, but everyone is interviewed for every job. Like I've never seen this many interviews for head coaching jobs. Is he in demand, or is he just a guy that teams wanted to talk to?
Well, I will say this. I'm here in Chicago. Like you said, the Bears are helping increase that interview number, not just for Monken, but for virtually every head coaching candidate that is known to man at this point.
And
but,
guys that we had no idea were head coaching candidates, like Eddie George. Who knew?
Who knew, right? Yeah. Exactly. I mean, look, we didn't necessarily know Sean McVay was ready for a head coaching job. Maybe, there are guys who come out of nowhere every single cycle and disprove their doubters and all that. But I heard Monken did well with his Chicago interview, and I haven't heard a lot of other names, a couple others, but I suspect the fact that Ben Johnson and the Lions lost, I think Johnson is somebody they're very interested in, probably hurts Monken's chances in Chicago, that specific situation, just a little. If I had to guess, he would not necessarily be the first choice, but I think he's higher on that list than a lot of people may realize. This is me kind of connecting dots here a little bit. But I will say there's some people who've been kind of fascinated by his work and believe that he might end up being the guy who's been a little bit unfairly overlooked in the process. So again, that's a little bit of a roundabout answer, but I don't know. I don't know if he's going to get a job this cycle, but I think he's in the mix in at least one spot, maybe a couple.
And then what do you like? Everybody of the neutral observers, I think the consensus is football fans now. We're not anybody would like it to be Washington, Buffalo. So can we just assume it's going to be Kansas City, Philadelphia, and get it over with?
Right. I think we'll end up with, any of the 4 combinations is pretty good. And I think you're right. I think there's a lot of sort of, wouldn't it be great for Jaden Daniels to be the first rookie starting quarterback, the guy who had the Heisman season in the state of Louisiana, to go back to New Orleans and get a shot to, slay history, I guess, and become the first guy. And he's been so tremendous at times this year. And then Josh Allen, obviously with the Bills too, just the fact that, they've been the bridesmaid 4 times in a row years ago, and come close the last several years, and it's going to take another win over Kansas City. But, if we get Chiefs-Eagles, obviously that was a rematch from a couple years ago, and it looked like the Eagles might have been the better team. So, yeah, again, whatever combination we get, I think will be pretty good. But, yeah, I think there is a sizable segment out there that wants to see what can this fearless Commanders team do, not only against the Eagles next week, but potentially in the Super Bowl. And that would really be the ultimate curveball from the beginning of the season, I think.
Eric Edholm, there will be plenty to talk. You and I will obviously be having a draft conversation here before too long, unfortunately. That's the way it goes. Anything else that I can plug for you?
Yeah, no, just did my final conference power rankings. We'll take a week off. I think my first week off for the power rankings since like August, and then we'll kind of re-rack all 32 with, little adjustments based on head coaching hirings and GMs and all that. So I'll, after the Super Bowl, once we know who's the champ, I'll kind of redo it, and then I'll be down to the Senior Bowl looking at all those prospects and seeing what to make of this very interesting but sort of muddled draft class right now.
Yeah, at Eric_Edholm is how you follow him. I'll look forward to those conversations in the coming weeks. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for doing this. Let's talk again real soon, all right?
All right, have a good morning, man. I appreciate it. See ya.
That's Eric Edholm from NFL.com with us here on GCR. I really am. It's funny because I wrote the column that I wrote last night, but I'm coming around to, like, I've talked myself into that's the column that I should have written, is the column about being boring. But it's not simplistic, right? Like, it's not.
There's no black and white to it.
Right.
Like,
it's not, hey, don't try to do anything. Don't try to be exciting. Don't try to make big plays. In fact, the Ravens had a lot of explosive plays last night. Didn't they have
Bateman, every catch he had.
God, but I saw the number today of like the 20-plus, what they call the 20-plus yard plays.
Was that Andrews' play technically an explosive play? Or was that like or if it was 19?
Well, yeah, it was because it was yeah, I think that would qualify.
Henry had, what was his longest run?
Hang on a second.
Oh, Henry. Justice Hill had a 20-yard run in there. So
I want to say they had something like here, it's Dan Orlovsky. Ravens won the explosive play battle 13-4. They had 13 explosive plays. So when I say you're boring, it's not somebody's going to hear that and say, well, you're not trying to do it. Like, you are trying to do. This is a complicated conversation. It's very much in the margins. It's that you look at those two turnovers and you say, that's where we need to be better. That's where we need to be able to clean things up and say, hey, there are things that we'll do in the regular season, but we don't do those in the postseason, or game circumstances dictate when we do them in the postseason. The Bills were content to be boring, but not on the fourth down. Then they were going for it. But game circumstance didn't dictate in either of those spots a need. If you're Mark Andrews and the team is down by 14 points in the second half, and it's 1st and 10, it's not like the momentum of having picked up that third down was big, right? It's situational. It's saying, hey, in this moment, we don't need more. We needed what you got. Obviously, if it was, you've been backed up by a penalty and you're in 2nd and 25 and you hit Mark Andrews for a gain of 10 and he's like, dude, I think I can get to the outside and I think there might be some yards over there to be had, then it's a different conversation. It's difficult because you're asking now football players to process more things, and the sport is so fast and so tough that, like, asking them to process more when they make these decisions is a lot. The Chiefs ultimately have kind of largely decided they're just going to be that team all year long. Mm-hmm. They're not even going to wait till the playoffs. This is who we're going to be.
Outside of course, every time Kelsey gets the ball across the middle, he's looking to pitch it backwards.
Every now and then he's still looking to do that. But again, I don't think you'd see him do that in the postseason. So I think that kind of I think that kind of fits with what we're discussing. It's context. It's you don't want to neuter Lamar Jackson. He's Lamar Jackson. He could make magic happen at any moment. But it's saying, hey, right now, the game's tied. We're on the road in the playoffs. We just can't have disaster occur. It's okay if we don't score a touchdown. What we can't have is disaster. That's boring. I'm using boring as the word because it's just the word that comes to mind. Someone else would say measured. Someone else would say, whatever they want to say. Insert your own word here. I'm going with boring just because it was the first one that came to mind. And when you're doing a show and you're moving, you just sort of stick with it. But that's what's coming away to me.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, I mean, but it again, it's within context. It's within specific places in the game, and how do you get there? And maybe the Ravens would say, if you were able to stick the truth serum in them, like they would say, we've actually been preaching that. Like we told these guys, hey, you don't do that stuff in the postseason. Maybe they would say they've already remember what happened with Zay Flowers last year? We had a whole conversation. We showed them that video and said, Zay's great, but that cost us. Don't do that. And then they did it anyway because that's in their nature to be competitors. Competitors in those moments,
they think they can score from anywhere on the field.
They just believe in their ability. The Lamar one, again, there's way more to it's really hard to defend the mark. I know Femi made the point last night on the postgame show that like there is room over there. But you're hard-pressed to believe that even Mark Andrews, a tight end, is going to get around multiple defenders running laterally and break that back to the outside. It's so unlikely. I keep coming back to that being the lesson. We'll see. All right. Trying to think if there was anything else that we're not going to cover anything else today. We'll have plenty of time to cover everything else that happened.
How about those Commanders, man?
Yeah, I said this was the last week where they were a good story. Now I'm not rooting for them anymore. Like I found myself like rooting. I'm not rooting for them anymore.
You're not a Philly fan now?
I'm not anybody's fan.
You are a Philly fan?
I'm not anybody's fan. I have no interest the rest of the way. I know that like America's supposed to root for the Bills because we're just supposed to be sick of the Chiefs, but like you can't get me to get on board. I don't like the Bills either. The Bills might also, they stood in the Ravens' way. Like, I can't feel that. There can be good stories, but I'm not rooting. There's no rooting interest left for me. There's no, in other years I've said I'm going to.
Benford, and.
Yeah, I mean, there's local guys. There's guys
Johnson.
That you can feel good for, but I got nothing that I'm rooting for at all. Like, no rooting anything the rest of the way. It's just, these are the teams that are playing. I'm going to root for my picks. Because
well, yeah, I guess you have to. Yeah, you.
I hate Ohio State. I literally spent years saying Ohio State sucks too at the end of every show. And tonight, I might as well be Brutus. Like, I might as well.
You're gonna be Big Nut. You're gonna be your face painted.
Oh my God, man! I gotta look like the Road Warriors. I gotta look like James Laurinaitis. Like, I gotta go all in. I've never needed a cover to hit like the way that I need Ohio State to cover. I need it bad. I am down bad. I can't go into the last week down 2. Or the last 3 games down 2. Like, it's over. There's no path. Oh God, I need this bad. But other than that, I got no rooting interest in anything the rest of the way. Just the picks. That's all that's left. Whoever wins, wins. I get it. We all want it to be someone different than the Chiefs. Like, we're all just sort of sick of it. But, like, I don't know. I also weirdly kind of respect the fact that they just keep doing this.
It'd be that much sweeter when the Ravens beat them next year.
I say that. If I have to, like, next week, I could find myself getting to that place, or I'm like the first,
I'm done
the first call that goes their way, I'm just like, oh, F it, fine, I'll pull for the Bills. But I can't. You can't lose to a team and then turn around and be like, hell yeah, brother. Like, I can't do that.
Well, it will be easy though, because as soon as Greg Rousseau touches Patrick Mahomes, the flag's gonna come in.
Yeah, and I'm gonna remember how much I hate that.
Yeah.
But then I don't know that I'm gonna start feeling good for the Bills. I don't think that.
Well, it's not gonna be feeling good. It's gonna be feeling bad about the Chiefs. That's what it's about. Right.
Let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by the print issue of Press Box. I know it didn't go the way we wanted it to, but let's not pretend like Lamar Jackson isn't still likely to be a 3-time NFL MVP and is well on his way to the Hall of Fame, and he's our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year. You go pick up that print issue. It is our best of issue. Wherever you find Press Box, not only your neighborhood Royal Farms, but hundreds of other locations throughout town. You can also read all of it, pressboxonline.com/bestof. I will pull the curtain back. we were a little bit nervous because we have plans in place for our next cover story, for our next.
But if something.
But if like the Ravens had won the Super Bowl, we were.
Oh, you would have done a co-issue, right?
It just would have been. It just would have been awkward. That's all. We would have had
just 2 different colors.
We would have had to have. And by the way, awkward conversations we would have loved to have had. But
see, here it is again, Glenn. Happy the Ravens lost.
Stop it. Stop
it. That's what the headlines are going to say.
I did think about that driving in this morning because it didn't even hit me. I will tell you, we did some work on the next print issue of Press Box last week, and I didn't even think about it until last night. Last night, I'm watching. I'm like, oh, what do we do if? And we had that conversation. We chose what we're going to do for the cover of the February issue. We were like, well, obviously we can pivot if the Ravens, reach the Super Bowl was what we had decided. If they get to the Super Bowl, we got to pivot. But the thing that we're doing, not really something we can pivot from. So we're going to have to come up with, like, do we put a leaf over the cover, like where there's a cover, but then there's a leaf over it, so there's really 2 covers.
Right.
Like
okay.
we were having that was where we were. Whatever. Go ahead.
I don't know. Well, now that we're talking about the Chiefs, I don't even want to talk about this one. So Kelsey has set the record now for consecutive playoff games with at least 5 receptions, 14 straight.
Good.
Games
Great.
with 5 catches.
Right.
I'm looking at the top 5 here. If you want to try to guess, I don't know who's second on the list. We don't have to go through all of them, I guess, but I'm looking at the 5 guys that have had 10 straight games of 5 catches in the playoffs ever.
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice did have 10 such games. Not the second most, but he is in the top 5.
The second most is Gronk.
No Gronk.
Wes Welker.
Wes Welker is on there. 10 straight games, 5 catches, 10 straight playoff games.
Problem is, Isaac Bruce.
Not Isaac Bruce. Going too far back.
Going too far back.
Both of they're not. One of them's no longer active, but both of them played. And when was his last year? I mean, he's played in the last decade.
Is it Antonio Brown?
Not Antonio Brown.
Both of them played in the last decade. Both of them played in the last
One's still active.
Decade. One is still active. Is that somehow Tyreek Hill?
It is Tyreek Hill. 10 straight games with 5. I think that one might still be active. I think he had 5 catches last week or last year with the Dolphins.
He certainly wasn't in the playoffs.
Yeah, not last week.
And then someone who's not active, but
he was
played
tied
in the last 10 years.
Here's who Kelsey was tied with. 13 straight games of
played
5
in the
catches.
last 10 years. God. How about Julian Edelman?
Julian Edelman, 13 straight 5-catch games. Travis Kelsey passes him with now 14. And yeah, the Ravens did not punt last night, as you and Jeremy brought up. According to True Media from Jonas Schaefer, teams that never punted in a playoff game were 5-1 entering last night. Now 5-2 after the Ravens, of course, do not take care of business. And then also, I try to end on a high note here. So since with the Commanders reaching the NFC Championship game, they're no longer the longest NFC Championship drought of anyone in the NFC. That is the Cowboys. Yeah. 1995, the last time. Then the closest team after that, 2010. So it has been quite a while since the Cowboys were last there. So let's go ahead and do the Billboard Top 5. January 1996. That would be the last.
No.
You were alive then. What do you mean?
I was alive.
Yeah.
But God. No. It was the Mariah Carey.
Mariah Carey was number 1. What song?
Fantasy?
Not Fantasy.
96. 90. Always Be My Baby?
Not Always Be My Baby.
Not Fantasy or Always Be My Baby. 96.
There was a feature on it as well.
It doesn't help me.
Okay.
Honey?
Not Honey.
Trying to even think which album. I guess it had to be an album that came out in 95. Oh, the Boyz II Men. And I know you're shining. One Sweet Day.
One Sweet Day
One Sweet
was
Day.
number 1.
Okay.
At that time.
Was there a Whitney Houston?
There was a Whitney Houston. She was number 2.
So that's not. What was it? Shoop? Was it Waiting to Exhale?
Yep, Exhale. Shoop.
All right, I'm actually doing.
I know you're doing.
I'm
Yeah,
doing
see?
all right
See?
now. 96 is wild because there could be like rock songs in 96. There could be.
These were all like
there
like
could be
R&B,
anything.
Hip hop.
These are all R&B hip hop.
Yeah.
Okay. Aaliyah.
No Aaliyah. Fantasy was number 7, by the way, by Mariah Carey.
How
Where
about
Aaliyah was that?
96? No, it's not that. 90 Biggie.
There was no Biggie.
Or okay.
No Tupac either.
How about 96?
guess
LL Cool J.
LL Cool J was number 3.
Oh. God, we just had a question to it trivia, like to name all of LL Cool J's number 1 songs that he ever had, and like, or what were his? No, it was name his 5 biggest Spotify songs.
This, 3 was
and
the
so
peak
like
for this song, so it did not reach 1.
Okay, well, it's not Doing It. That's before then. It's not Phenomenon. I think that was afterwards. It's not Headsprung, obviously. That was afterwards. How about Hey Lover?
Hey Lover.
Okay.
Was number 3. One Sweet Day by Mariah Carey. Exhale.
This is way better than I had any business doing. I mean, I had to get some help getting there.
Yeah.
96. They're all hip hop or R&B. Hip hop or R&B. I guessed Aaliyah, right?
Yeah.
Brandy.
No Brandy.
Monica.
No Monica. Monica was 8. Before You Walk Out of My Life was 8.
I don't think I would have come up with that song. Coolio.
Coolio was number 4.
Is that 1, 2, 3, 4 something new?
No, not 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is it Gangsta's Paradise?
Gangsta's
Oh
Paradise.
my God!
Gangsta's
I can't.
Paradise.
I thought that came out earlier. I can't believe that was still okay.
Maybe it did, and it was coming back.
All right. How about Montel Jordan?
Did peak at 1. No Montel Jordan.
It would have only been one option if it had been him. Number 5 is.
Coolio also had Too Hot in the top 25.
Okay. How about is it a solo or a group?
It's a group.
It's a group. Boyz II Men. They were on the Mariah Carey.
Not Boyz II Men.
TLC.
TLC.
That's after Waterfalls. That's before No Scrubs. It's somewhere between. What was that song called? Red Light. Just called Red Light, right?
It wasn't the song. Red Light is not the song.
Okay.
Is this one about the red light? No. It's about lights, though.
It's about lights? All right, I'm assuming it still had to be from the same album. It had to be from, what was that called? Crazy, Sexy, Cool?
Yeah, it was Crazy, Sexy, Cool.
It was Crazy, Sexy, Cool. See, that's surprising because I thought that came out like...
It came out in 94, so yeah.
Wow, so
been a
there you
whole
go,
year
right?
there, yeah.
That's a long time. So what else was on? So it was Creep.
Not Creep.
I'm trying to think of what the hell else was on that album. All right, you might have to tell me.
Let's see. I don't really have any hints.
Was it called? By the way, was I right that there was Red Light on that album?
Red Light was Crazy Sexy Cool. It was. No.
No,
I don't think so.
There was
scanning here.
There was
No,
a red light. All right, just tell me what was it?
Digging on You.
We could have been here for a while. I probably wouldn't have come up with Digging on You. Damn, I listen to that record a lot.
Red Light Special by TLC.
Yeah, that was a song. Red Light Special.
Oh wait, it does say it was on Crazy Sexy Cool.
I thought
Why
it was.
wasn't it on
Yeah,
that
way to
list I just
go.
looked at?
Trying
Yeah.
to gaslight me.
Trying to red light you.
I know we're doing a new day in America, but let's try to keep the gaslighting to a minimum, please. Please.
Yeah, well done. Well done. There you go.
I'm way better than I had any business doing on that one. Way better than I had any business doing. All right, very good. Let's get tubular.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
Real quick breaking news this morning. John Morosi reports Anthony Santander and the Blue Jays are in agreement pending a physical. So, I mean, that we knew.
He'll fill a physical on purpose, right?
When they got Tyler O'Neill, that signaled the end for Anthony Santander. I know a lot of people are doing maybe the price is going to come down because there just really aren't at bats there. It sucks. I am very appreciative of Anthony Santander. Damn good baseball player. I mean, damn good baseball player. It's a bummer. It's a bummer. I'd rather have Anthony Santander than Tyler O'Neill, personally. Just rather would. I don't know what the numbers are going to look like.
Yeah, the figures aren't out yet.
But I'd rather have him, and I would have rather paid more money for Anthony Santander than for Tyler O'Neill. But that's me. We'll see. The Orioles have the opportunity to prove that they were right. Sorry. It's just a reminder
it's
that
worse
like
than the Ravens loss.
No, we're like dejected about one thing, and then you're like, God. If there was ever a time that the Orioles could do the swing a trade for Dylan Cease today, that'd be very beneficial. But I'm not expecting that. All right, a lot coming up, by the way, sports-wise. Here's what's coming up. Totally tubular, obviously. A lot of people paying attention to the political proceedings, but there's a lot of other things that are going on. It's a busy sports day as well. It ends with the national championship. Well, it doesn't end because actually the tennis goes all night. But the big one tonight is the national championship game on ESPN and their family of networks for all their various simulcasts, 7:30, Ohio State and Notre Dame.
You said you're tuning in for the McAfee cast? Is that what
Yeah, I'll just watch the game. Maryland and Texas, big women's basketball showdown. Top 10 matchup today, 5:30 on Fox from Newark. By the way, of all the networks to be bailing on inauguration coverage, like I did not have Fox says no thanks to the inauguration in favor of women's basketball on my bingo card. But I get it. Like they have their cable network. Yeah. That's what they'll do. But yeah, just weird. There's a Baylor UCLA game before that at 3:00. So like they're bailing early today to go to women's basketball coverage. And then Maryland, Texas from Newark at 5:30. Australian Open all night, and the big one, of course, being overnight and really tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. for Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz. I'm jealous of Jeremy for the first time in my life because like he'll be waking up and be able to watch a tennis match. Not that he'll care.
Tell him to live tweet it so that way you can.
Right? No, I will be asleep. I'm not.
So you can check the tweets afterwards.
Got it.
Feel like you were there.
Yeah, got it.
Whoa.
Yeah, sure. Something along those lines. NBA already underway today on NBA TV. Mavericks Hornets right now, and then on TNT coming up later on this afternoon. T-Wolves Grizzlies at 2:30, and then Celtics Warriors at 5. Then they've got more Unrivaled. I didn't get a chance to look at any of that over the week. There's too much going on, but I'd like to look at Unrivaled in the coming weeks. Hopefully, I'll have time to do that. That's tonight at 8:30. NHL today, just a night game. Lightning Maple Leafs at 7:30. USA for Chelsea and Wolverhampton Wanderers at 3. College basketball getting underway at 1 o'clock today. CBS Sports Network with a CAA doubleheader. William Mary, UNC Wilmington, then Hofstra Drexel after that. They got hoops all day on CBS Sports Network. Peacock tonight for Rutgers, Penn State at 6:30. That's the only Big Ten game. And Netflix for WWE Raw at 8. Anything non-sports-wise?
Not really. Don Cheadle will be on Kimmel, if anybody is into that. He's in Unstoppable, the wrestling movie with Anthony...
Robles.
Yeah, Robles. Yes, from Arizona State. Colin Jost will be on Fallon, along with David Allen Greer, who's in St. Dennis Medical. That's it.
I do enjoy that show.
Yeah.
I do enjoy it.
Otherwise, yeah, you're watching
By the way, it's not just Tommy Paul, Alex Zverev tonight is pretty good. That's 10 o'clock.
Coco's tonight, right?
Coco is tonight. Coco and, it's a good one. It's Palabadosa.
Oh, wow. Ooh.
Coco and Palabadosa tonight. That's what?
Well, it seems like a good one.
Oh, the match. I thought you saw something else that was interesting.
She's going to win, though, right, Coco?
I think so. But that's a tough one. That's tonight at 7:30, so that'll be the first one. That'll be on up against the football game. So, yeah. Only ESPN Plus for that match. All right, thanks today to Eric Edholm. Thanks, Jeremy Conn. Thanks also to Dan Wilcox. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the
Can You Take Me Higher?
It does make me feel good. Tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow we'll talk to Patrick Stevens because Maryland basketball, they won.
They're winning, yeah.
They did win. They got that going for them, which is something. Stuff and things. Oh, you got to talk to Brian McFarland.
Okay.
We were tweeting today, but you got to talk to him. We always do that every year whenever the Ravens are eliminated, and stuff and things.
Okay.
Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Live Casino and Hotel, Cruise Maryland Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, Royal Farms, CIAA Tournament, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, the Costas Inn, MSAA, Maryland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. A moment that we all continue to reflect on the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. May we continue to try to make his dream come to fruition in our world. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us at Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Monday evening. Go Maryland women. Go American players in Australia. Selfishly, Ohio State. Duke sucks.